Chapter 1285. After leaving Green Hunchback Mountain, Xiao Yan headed west and soon arrived at Yen City. Arriving at this familiar city once again, a beautiful figure immediately surfaced in Xiao Yan's mind. It was Jin Yao. Thinking back, he had obtained many treasures from her, especially the 1,000-fan tree. It was still alive and standing in his storage ring. If not for the fact that he did not expect his ancestor to have such a relationship with the Burning Flame Valley's ancestor, the 1,000-fan tree would have been his first choice in exchanging for the geocentric body elixir. Putting that aside, Xiao Yan also had a good impression of Jin Yao. Now that he thought about it, with that woman's intelligence, she should be living quite well in Yen City. Arriving at the 1,000 Medicine House once again, the place had indeed changed greatly. Not only was it much larger than before, even the guards at the door had reached the Do-D class. Seeing the two middle-aged men wearing the uniform of guards standing in front of the door, Xiao Yan could not help but nod his head. Just as he was about to walk into the house, his eyes suddenly paused. His gaze once again returned to the two guards. His gaze landed on their chests. There was a family crest clearly embroidered there, with the word Sheng embroidered on it. Xiao Yan immediately knit his brows when he saw this scene. He raised his head and took a look. The three large words 1,000 Medicinal House entered his eyes. He had indeed come to the right place. However, these two guards clearly did not belong to this place. While Xiao Yan's heart was filled with doubt, he continued to walk forward. Just as he reached the door, the two guards suddenly moved and each of them blocked Xiao Yan's path. Get lost. Don't you see that the Sheng family is here? The 1,000 Medicine House is not accepting any guests today. At the same time that the curses were spat out from their mouths, the two middle-aged men simultaneously pushed their palms toward Xiao Yan's shoulders. Xiao Yan frowned, but his footsteps did not pause. He allowed the palms of the two men to land on his shoulders. His footsteps did not stop. The moment their palms made contact with Xiao Yan's body, the two guards suddenly sensed an incomparably frightening and powerful force. Their bodies were sent flying because of this. At the same time, Xiao Yan's spiritual strength spread out. Everything that happened in the 1,000 Medicine House was recorded in Xiao Yan's mind. At this moment, in a sealed room in the 1,000 Medicine House, a man and a woman were inside. The woman was undoubtedly Jin Yao. However, at this moment, the red dress she was wearing was almost torn. Most of her body was exposed to the air. Her beautiful face was full of fear. Tears kept falling from the corners of her eyes. Everything had turned into a hopeless situation. At this moment, Jin Yao was being teased by the man in front of her. Even death had become an extravagant hope. At this moment, in front of Jin Yao, a rich young man dressed in a brocade robe was staring at Jin Yao with a lewd smile. Looking at her snow-white and voluptuous body, he could not help but lick his lips. Then, he pounced on the woman in front of him again. Outside the door, several guards looked at the situation in the room through the crack of the door. Each of them had a lewd expression on their faces. However, at this moment, a cold murderous intent caused the smiles on their faces to gradually disappear. Then, it turned into fear. Ha 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 ha, Jin Yao, I've spent so much manpower and resources on you, yet you still dare to ignore this young lord? Today, no matter what, this young lord will take you down. I will let you know what it means to beg for death. With a sinister laugh, the man once again pounced on Jin Yao. His Do-Chi was attached to his hands as he ruthlessly pressed Jin Yao onto the bed. No matter how she struggled, she couldn't escape from the man's grasp. Looking at the man's crazy actions, Jin Yao's heart was filled with grief. At this moment, she really wished she could commit suicide to end all troubles. However, the cyclone in her body was sealed by the man in front of her. Any attempt to commit suicide would be blocked by him. Right now, she was afraid that she could only be at his mercy. However, at this moment, bang! There was a loud explosion behind her. The tightly closed door was knocked open by someone. Several figures were knocked into the room by an invisible force. In the blink of an eye, they lost all signs of life. The young man in front of the bed was also shocked by this sudden change and took a few steps back. Because of this, Jin Yao had a moment to catch her breath. Looking at the guards who had already lost their vitality on the ground, a terrified expression immediately appeared on the man's face. He hurriedly turned his head to look. A figure whose face could not be seen clearly was slowly walking into the room under the sunlight. The light disappeared, revealing a handsome face. This caused the young man in front of him and Jin Yao, who was curled up on the bed, to be stunned for a moment. The man naturally did not expect that a little brat would be able to so easily kill the guards he had brought with him. In fact, he had even come out unscathed. Jin Yao was shocked that he had once again appeared in the nick of time when she was in danger. This involuntarily caused the depths of the latter's heart to tremble a little. Damn it, where did this little brat come from? To think that he dares to disturb me. Don't you know that I'm a member of the Shin clan? If you dare to disturb my mood, I'll make sure you suffer. Although the black-robed man before him seemed extraordinary, the young man was confident that his Shin clan was not to be trifled with. His Shin clan was undoubtedly the overlord in the Yen City area. However, Xiao Yan acted as though he did not hear the young man's threatening words. His gaze turned and landed on Jin Yao, who was currently curled up on the bed. He opened his mouth slightly and slowly walked forward. With a random clench of his hand, he used his Genesis Chi to form a black robe that covered Jin Yao's naked body. Only after which did he turn his head to look at the young man. The young man's face instantly turned green when he saw that Xiao Yan actually dared to ignore him. Anger rose in his heart as Do Chi gathered in his hand and a punch was viciously thrown at Xiao Yan. Bang! However, when this fist smashed onto Xiao Yan's body, the strength that erupted from the fist was returned to him by a few times. This strike sent his body flying. Only at this moment did this young man realize just how frightening this black-robed young man in front of him was. You, who exactly are you? Xiao Yan completely ignored the trembling voice of this young man. He slowly stepped forward, slowly raised his hand and spread his 5 fingers. The horror on the young man's face also became denser. Immediately, he hurriedly let out a loud cry and said, "Don't worry. You can't kill me. My grandfather is Xingdong of the Shin clan. You can't kill me." Unfortunately, the young man's body was swallowed into the endless void as he shouted. Chapter 1286. After casually killing the young man, the cold and detached expression on Xiao Yan's face slowly returned to normal. He turned around, his gaze once again landing on Jin Yao, who was still curled up on the bed. He slowly walked towards the bed and reached out a hand to gently tug on Jin Yao's black robes as he said in a gentle voice, "I've made you suffer." The moment these words were uttered, it was as though the pillar of the embankment had been pulled apart. Her eyes, which were filled with tears, were unable to be stopped. Following this, Jin Yao's throat also emitted a sorrowful cry. Her soft lovely body suddenly pounced into Xiao Yan's embrace and cried out loudly. Xiao Yan was also stunned by Jin Yao's sudden action. Soon after, he returned to his senses and wrapped his arm around Jin Yao's shoulders, allowing the latter to vent the emotions in her heart. At the same time, after the young man was killed by Xiao Yan with one hand, the expression of an old man, who was originally admiring the fish beside a pond in a huge manor outside of Yen City, suddenly changed drastically. His shriveled hand hurriedly flipped and a broken jade tablet appeared in his palm. This. Anger immediately rose in the old man's heart as he stared at the completely broken jade tile in his hand. Boundless Genesis Chi frantically circulated in his body, causing ripples to form in the calm pond water. Who killed my As a hoarse roar of anger sounded from the old man's mouth, powerful energy undulations immediately unfurled from his body, destroying everything in the courtyard in the blink of an eye. Soon after, the old man's gaze instantly locked onto a certain direction, where Yen City was located. His grandson had clearly brought a group of experts to Yen City this morning. He knew what his grandson was going to do. Could it be that woman? The rage in the old man's heart grew even stronger at this thought. With a flip of his hand, he kept the broken jade tile into his storage ring. As he lifted his head, a chilling voice filled with killing intent slowly spat out. "Jin Yao, if this old man catches you, I will pull out your tendons and pull out your bones before tearing your corpse into 10,000 pieces." The moment he finished speaking, the old man stomped his foot on the ground. The ground under his feet exploded and cracks spread out rapidly. The old man's figure also disappeared from the manor in an instant. Inside the 1,000 medicine house, Xiao Yan had slaughtered every other member of the Xing family. After that, Xiao Yan and Jin Yao, who was dressed in black robes, arrived at the backyard of the 1,000 medicine house. "I heard you went to the Southern Territory 3 years ago after the Battle of Maze Valley with Qin Wasteland ended?" At this moment, Jin Yao had regained her composure. With a gentle expression, she looked at Xiao Yan in front of her and slowly handed him a cup of tea. Hearing this, Xiao Yan chuckled and nodded. "I originally came from the southern region. Back then, something happened to a friend there, so I hurried over. But now, everything has been resolved. I also heard that you and that person in the Shilin mountain range seem to have an unusual relationship." At this point, Jin Yao looked at Xiao Yan with a flicker in her beautiful eyes. The latter could not help but smile when he heard this. He placed the cup of tea back on the table and said slowly, "You must be talking about Leng Shuangshuang. You're talking about Leng Bing Shuang, right? She's my wife now." As soon as he said this, Jin Yao, who was pouring tea for Xiao Yan, suddenly moved. The smile on her beautiful face involuntarily faded a little. After her eyes flickered slightly, she continued to pour tea for Xiao Yan with a smile. "Then, you came back this time to take her away? Someone is coming." As soon as Jin Yao finished speaking, Xiao Yan said this. While the former was slightly stunned, a stream of light suddenly fell from the sky in the courtyard where the two of them were. It crashed heavily into the courtyard, and an invisible energy immediately swept out with a cloud of dust. However, when it approached Xiao Yan and Jin Yao, it separated on its own as if it had hit a wall. "Jin Yao," in the cloud of dust, a low and hoarse old man's voice slowly came out. It was not difficult to hear the cold killing intent in that voice. Hearing this, Jin Yao could not help but frown slightly. Compared to before, there was less fear in her heart now. With Xiao Yan's existence, Jin Yao no longer had to fear anyone. A cool breeze swept across the courtyard, and the dust in the courtyard was quickly washed away, revealing an old figure in a brocade robe. At this time, although the latter had already noticed the existence of Jin Yao, he was not in a hurry to take action. Instead, he looked cautiously at Xiao Yan, who was facing him sideways. Although the latter did not make a move, the old man could still faintly sense that this black-robed man was not simple. Perhaps, this person was the one who killed his grandson. Looking at the black-robed man in front of him who had clearly killed someone but was still drinking tea calmly, the anger in the old man's heart grew even more. What gave him such confidence? "Boy, you are the one who killed this old man's grandson?" After a long while, the old man slowly said in a low voice. "If you're Xingdong, then there's no mistaking it." Xiao Yan did not pay any attention to that. He gently raised the teacup before him and took a sip. His face was indifferent. He was only an early returnance expert. His cultivation level was not enough for him to take him seriously. Seeing that this murderer was actually still so calm and composed, Xingdong's old body could not help but tremble. The majestic energy in his body continued to surge out. Within his pair of shady old eyes, the fury that was filled with killing intent could no longer be suppressed. In the next moment, the old man's body suddenly flashed. Following a white light that flashed past, his figure appeared in front of Xiao Yan in the blink of an eye. The 5 fingers of his right hand curled into a claw and violently grabbed at Xiao Yan's throat. At the same time, Xiao Yan's face also fell into Xingdong's eyes. At this moment, Xingdong's pupils suddenly shrank, and his emotions instantly turned into shock. How can it be? Boom! Following a muffled collision sound, Xiao Yan's left hand had unknowingly landed on the old man's chest. Xiao Yan's hand shook slightly and a force surged out like an erupting volcano. It sent Xingdong flying in front of him with one strike. When Xingdong's body smashed onto the ground, he was in a miserable state. However, he did not have the time to put up any resistance. His body hurriedly climbed up from the ground and knelt down towards Xiao Yan with a terrified face. He said in a panic, "I did not know it was Sir Xiao Yan who had arrived. Please forgive me for my ignorance." The moment these words were uttered, not only Jin Yao, but even Xiao Yan felt a little surprised. It was unexpected that this old man actually recognized him and was even able to display such an attitude when his grandson was killed. He was really not an ordinary person. Chapter 1287. You recognize me? Xiao Yan raised an eyebrow when he heard Xingdong's words as he slowly asked. Sir, when you fought against the Qin Wasteland's Maze Valley, I was one of the people you saved from the western valley of Ping Mountain. After that, I helped you to defeat the Qin Wasteland's Maze Valley. Only then did I recognize you. Xingdong hurriedly recounted the events that had occurred between him and Xiao Yan when he heard this. The latter immediately came to a sudden understanding upon hearing these words. After that battle, Xiao Yan had once again distributed quite a number of medicinal pills to them. Hence, a portion of them had already reached the origin transformation stage and above. This Xingdong in front of him could be considered to have benefited quite a lot. However, Xingdong's grandson had died at his hands. This matter was probably, I see. It was all thanks to your assistance in that battle. Xiao Yan nodded and said with a smile. You are too polite, sir. It is only natural that you saved us from danger. You are very good, but your grandson's conduct was improper. He almost harmed my friend. Fortunately, I arrived in time today. Otherwise, it would have caused a great disaster. At that time, the Xing family would probably. Before he could finish speaking, Xingdong's pupils abruptly shrank. His kneeling body hurriedly sank down as a look of fear appeared on his face. A few drops of cold sweat dripped from his forehead. He clenched his teeth and hurriedly explained, Sir, you are right. My lord, you're right. My grandson brought this upon himself. He deserves it. When Xingdong returns, I'll definitely discipline my clansmen and make sure they don't cause any more trouble. Even though Xingdong was extremely unwilling in his heart, he still forcefully clenched his teeth. Both of his eyes were tightly shut as he said these words. What else could he do now that things had developed to this stage? Xiao Yan had already used the Xing clan as a threat. If he dared to disobey, it was likely that the clan behind him would also be threatened. Today, his grandson was dead. He could not find any reason, nor could he find any reason to avenge him. Just like what he said, he only had himself to blame. Soon after, Xingdong dragged his heavily injured body and left Yen City. On the streets, Xingdong's old face was pale and his hair was disheveled. His pair of shady old eyes were filled with tears. Under his sleeves, his withered hands were tightly clenched into fists. His heart was filled with resentment and helplessness. On both sides of the street, countless people stared at the usually high and mighty Xing family ancestor. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. The moment he stepped out of the city gates, his body finally trembled violently. A large mouthful of blood involuntarily spurted out from his mouth and he nearly fell to the ground. Inside the Thousand Medicine House, Xiao Yan slowly put down his teacup and shook his head. With a soft sigh, he leapt and disappeared from Yen City. Jin Yao couldn't help but frown as she watched Xiao Yan leave. Her jade-like hands gently stroked her black robes as her beautiful eyes flashed. After Xiao Yan left Yen City, he continued to head west. A couple of hours later, he appeared in the middle of the Sand River. The current Sand River shop was undoubtedly much more prosperous than a few years ago. As the border between the Shilin region and the western wastelands, this place witnessed countless people coming and going every day. Various rare treasures were constantly exchanged. At the same time, this was where Lu Zhongtian currently resided. Lu Zhongtian currently had his auction houses scattered all over the western wastelands. With Sand River shop being his headquarters, the auction house here was the largest. Its degree of prosperity was also unimaginable. Rank 4 pills, spirit tier chi methods and dose skills that were rarely seen in the past frequently appeared in Lu Zhongtian's auction houses. Sometimes, even rank 5 pills would appear. Even some origin kings would be tempted by pills of that level, let alone ordinary experts. Today, Xiao Yan had come to Sand River's shop to find Lu Zhongtian to help him auction his pills. Moreover, all the pills that were to be auctioned were all rank 5 and above. Most of the pills were obtained by Xiao Yan from his opponent's storage rings. Although there were some pills that were extremely valuable, it was a pity that the current Xiao Yan no longer had any interest in these pills regardless of whether it was in terms of cultivation level or eyesight. Rather than storing them in a storage ring, it was better to auction them. A moment later, Xiao Yan's figure appeared in front of the largest auction house in Sand River shop. The grand scene could be said to be the most impressive auction house that Xiao Yan had ever seen. This was where Lu Zhongtian was located. Although there were many barriers and there were even quite a number of formations deliberately blocking him, Xiao Yan was still able to clearly sense Lu Zhongtian's location given his current spiritual strength. He immediately smiled slightly and walked towards the entrance of the auction house. After the previous incident, Xiao Yan's gaze subconsciously landed on the two tall and sturdy figures standing at the entrance when he arrived at the entrance this time. After confirming that they were indeed people from the auction house, he laughed involuntarily in his heart and was about to step through. Wait a moment. However, just as Xiao Yan was about to step past the two of them each took a step forward and blocked Xiao Yan. Seeing this, Xiao Yan could not help but frown. He did not expect that there would be so much trouble entering the auction house. What is it? Xiao Yan frowned a little impatiently. However, this was Lu Zhongtian's territory after all, so he could only suppress his impatience and slowly ask. Kid, it's not impossible for you to enter my clan's auction house, but you must at least possess a cultivation of the origin transformation stage or be auctioning an item of equivalent value to a tier 4 pill. Otherwise, you should obediently return. Xiao Yan could not help but be taken aback when he heard this. He did not expect Lu Zhongtian's requirements to be so high. There were not many experts above the origin transformation stage in the western regions to begin with, yet Lu Zhongtian had used this as a screening criteria. Even a tier 4 pill had become the minimum requirement. Xiao Yan could not help but laugh to himself when he thought of this. He was just about to adjust the Genesis chi in his body when his gaze quickly turned and a crafty glint flashed across it. He raised his head and his gaze once again looked at the two large men in front of him as he slowly smiled and said, "Since that is the case, I'll auction the pill." The two men could not help but be taken aback when they heard this. They looked at the ordinary-looking young man in black robes before them and somewhat hesitantly asked in their hearts. "Kid, you said you want to auction a tier 4 pill?" "Tier 4 pill, huh? I don't have any," Xiao Yan smiled. The words that were spat out from his mouth caused the expressions of the two people in front of him to instantly become gloomy. Daring to tease them in this place was not a wise choice. Soon after, however, just as the two of them were about to throw the black-robed young man in front of them out, Xiao Yan's following words caused the expressions of the two people in front of him to suddenly become dull. "I only have tier 5 pills in my possession." Chapter 1288. Sand River, in a brightly lit hall, Xiao Yan lazily sat on a chair. His gaze swept up and down the layout of the hall, and he could not help but be surprised. Lu Zhongtian had been living a prosperous life these past few years, and this guest hall was quite unique. From the building materials to the array layout in the hall, everything was unique. Just from the array layout here, if an expert below King Yuan wanted to cause trouble here, they would have to pay a great price. Just as Xiao Yan was looking around, an old man quickly rushed over from outside the hall. Before he arrived, his apologetic voice could already be heard. "Hee, I'm really sorry to have made Mr. wait for so long. This old man is the manager here. Because our president is hosting the auction at the front desk, I accidentally neglected Mr. I hope you don't blame me." As his voice fell, the old man's figure had already arrived in front of Xiao Yan. Seeing such a young black-robed youth in front of him, the old man could not help but reveal a look of surprise. He did not expect that the customer who wanted to auction a rank 5 medicinal pill would actually be a young man. "Mister, you You really want to auction a rank 5 medicinal pill? After a long while, the old man slowly spoke with a suspicious expression. He really found it hard to believe. How could such a young man take out a rank 5 medicinal pill? Even if he really did, how could he bear to bring it to the auction house? Was he not afraid that someone would kill him to steal the treasure? Seeing this, Xiao Yan smiled noncommittally and did not say anything. Instead, he flicked his finger, and the storage ring on his finger immediately flashed with light. Following that, dozens of jade bottles containing medicinal pills appeared on the tea table at the side. There were more than 30 jade bottles, and in each jade bottle, there was at least one medicinal pill. Moreover, they were all rank 5 medicinal pills without a doubt. The expression on the old man's face was immediately startled as he looked at the pile of jade bottles in front of him that were about to fill the entire table. Immediately, he swiftly picked up a jade bottle in front of Xiao Yan's smiling eyes. After opening it, he carefully inspected the medicinal pill within it. As the jade bottle was opened, a rich pill fragrance immediately gushed out. The special medicinal power contained within caused the old man's mind to sway. He had naturally seen many rank 5 medicinal pills. Although the one in front of him was not the best, in comparison, the quality of the rank 5 medicinal pills was definitely not bad. It is indeed rank 5. Finally, the old man nodded with a solemn expression. His deep gaze slowly swept across the other jade bottles, and a look of shock surged on his face at the same time. There was no doubt that since even the bottle of medicinal pills he casually chose was rank 5, the quality of the rest of the medicinal pills was naturally without a doubt. And these 30 over medicinal pills were actually all tier 5 medicinal pills. If such a number of them appeared in the western region, they would probably cause a great commotion. Sir, are you really sure that all of these medicinal pills should be auctioned? After confirming the grades of these medicinal pills, the old man no longer dared to underestimate this seemingly ordinary black-robed young man in front of him. To be able to take out so many rank 5 medicinal pills in one go, this kind of wealth was definitely not something that an ordinary person could do. After all, even with their auction house's foundation, the number of rank 5 medicinal pills in their current inventory was no more than 2 hands. Therefore, the old man could conclude at this moment that the black-robed young man in front of him was definitely not an ordinary person. Auction all of them. I have no use for them. Additionally, I hope that this matter can be resolved within half a month. Upon hearing Xiao Yan's words, the old man in front of him was stunned. He was naturally aware of the value of a rank 5 medicinal pill. However, this black-robed young man in front of him had actually so casually said that it was useless for him to keep them. If these words were to be heard by an ordinary person, it was likely that that person would be angered half to death. The thing that shocked him the most was that Xiao Yan actually requested for all of these medicinal pills to be auctioned off within half a month. This was the first time that this old man had heard of such a request after living for so long. The old man was not in a hurry to keep these jade bottles in front of him. With an embarrassed smile on his face, he sat opposite Xiao Yan. His face was filled with caution as he smiled apologetically at Xiao Yan. In his heart, he could only anxiously wait for the chairman of his own auction house to arrive in time. It was likely that only he would be able to handle such a situation. Approximately 2 hours later, Xiao Yan's gaze finally once again looked towards the outside of the hall. Within his spiritual perception, a somewhat familiar aura was hurrying towards this place. The owner of that aura was indeed Lu Zhongtian. At the same time, the old man sitting opposite Xiao Yan had similarly discovered the latter's arrival. Immediately, the nervous emotions in his heart relaxed slightly. With an embarrassed smile on his face, he hurriedly went forward to welcome him. Wang Xian, what exactly happened? Outside the hall, Lu Zhongtian frowned and hurriedly inquired when he saw the steward swiftly approaching. Similarly, Wang Xian did not dare to be careless. He hurriedly recounted everything that had happened to Lu Zhongtian. Upon hearing this, the latter's face involuntarily revealed a shocked expression. Immediately, he lifted his head to look at the mysterious black-robed young man in the middle of the hall. However, when his gaze landed on the black-robed figure who had already stood up, the expression on his face gradually froze. In the hall, Xiao Yan had a smile on his face as he looked at Lu Zhongtian, who had not changed much compared to a few years ago, and slowly said, "It's been 3 years since we last met. How have you been?" "Naturally well. It's all thanks to you that I can have today and my current cultivation." After a pause, Lu Zhongtian slowly opened his mouth with a smile. In the past 3 years, with the aid of the medicinal pills Xiao Yan had given him back then and some opportunities, Lu Zhongtian's cultivation had already reached the Origin King realm. He was not the slightest bit inferior to the ancestor of the Bai clan, Bai Haoshuan. Subsequently, Lu Zhongtian walked forward and lowered his head slightly to look at the medicinal pills on the table. He could not help but laugh involuntarily. "No wonder you can scare the steward of my auction house to such an extent. In the entire western region, I'm afraid that only you can take out such a sum." After these words were spoken, Xiao Yan could not help but sneer. Immediately, Lu Zhongtian continued, "Tell me, why are you auctioning so many medicinal pills? With your status, you don't seem like someone who lacks money. I want to establish a faction in the western region, but my personal wealth is not enough. Therefore, I plan to auction these medicinal pills." Hearing this, Lu Zhongtian's brows immediately twitched. There was some surprise in his eyes. He did not expect that Xiao Yan would already have such a plan when he saw him again. There was no need to think too much, he knew what would happen in the future. The faction that Xiao Yan wanted to establish would definitely dominate the entire western region. "Do you need my help?" "That's exactly what I was thinking. The reason I came to Sand River's shop this time was firstly to ask you to help me auction these medicinal pills. Secondly, I hope to form an alliance with the faction under your command." Xiao Yan smiled indifferently. If he could also form an alliance with Lu Zhongtian, the growth of the Xiao clan would definitely be extremely terrifying. When he left, he would naturally not have to worry about anything in the western region. That won't do." However, Lu Zhongtian's reply caused Xiao Yan to be slightly taken aback. This was something that he had not expected. If Lu Zhongtian was unwilling, rather than forming an alliance, I feel that it's better to directly join. Chapter 1289. At the same time that Xiao Yan met Lu Zhongtian, Tianning and the others quickly purchased all the shops in the city with the spirit stones that Xiao Yan had given them. The news that Xiao Yan was going to establish the Xiao clan quickly spread throughout the Shilin region as if it had grown wings. As for Lang Bingshuang, the latter directly rushed to the western wilderness region and went straight to the Murong family. Not only did the establishment of the Xiao clan require the support of all the factions in the Shilin region, the Murong family, who lived in seclusion in the western wilderness region, had also become a target for them to rope in. Especially with their relationship with Lang Bingshuang, Xiao Yan believed that the chances of getting the Murong family to form an alliance with the Xiao clan was not small. Xiao Yan's name once again swept through the western region at lightning speed when news spread from all over the place. A countless number of factions were once again shocked by this name. All of them recalled the soul-stirring battle 3 years ago. The Qin wasteland Maze Valley, which was an old overlord of the western region, had been forcefully destroyed by Xiao Yan. Ever since then, Xiao Yan had suddenly disappeared. Originally, everyone thought that the western region had come to an end. Quite a number of experts had swarmed out and the various large factions had repeatedly competed with each other. Now that Xiao Yan had once again returned, he had shocked the western region the moment he attacked. It seemed that he was about to become the top overlord of the western region. A few days later, in the Xing family's manor outside Yen City, Xing Dong's heart was heavy when he heard the news from his clansmen. His grandson had died at the hands of Xiao Yan. Not only was he unable to do anything to the latter, Xiao Yan's Xiao clan, which was about to rise, had once again threatened the existence of his Xing family. Now that Yen City was the headquarters of the Xiao clan, once the Xiao clan flourished, they would definitely become the overlord of the western regions. Moreover, his Xing family was currently so close to the Xiao clan. If he did anything against them, he would definitely be immediately discovered. At that time, it would be difficult for his Xing family to protect themselves. A few days ago, he had been forced by Xiao Yan and the injuries in his body had yet to fully recover. Now that he thought of this, Xing Dong's face became increasingly pale. Father. Kai died in the hands of that Xiao Yan, and now he's being so aggressive and wants to kill our Xing family. We can't just sit and wait for death, even if we have to die, Pa. At the side, the middle-aged man's face was filled with unwillingness as he rebuked angrily. However, before he could finish his words, he was slapped to the ground by Xingdong. His pale old face was filled with an expression of exasperation. Bastard. Kai is already dead. Do you still want to send the bloodline of my Xing family to death? Xingdong's face was filled with rage and killing intent surged in his eyes. However, he suppressed it in the end. Do you know how the Bai family was able to achieve its current status? Who didn't know that the Bai family was ranked last among the 4 great families of the Heavenly Sword sect? They didn't even have the qualifications to participate in the sect's internal affairs. But now? Xiao Yan killed my grandson. This old man will never forget this matter. However, if you want revenge, it's definitely not something that can be achieved by fighting with all of your emotions. Xingdong took a deep breath and then slowly exhaled. The expression on his old face gradually returned to normal. A smile appeared on his pale old face. He helped the middle-aged man up and slowly said, "Send my message. From today onwards, my Xing family will be a subordinate force of the Xiao clan." The next day, the news of the Xing family submitting to the Xiao clan rapidly spread throughout the Shilin region. Immediately, countless forces moved. Very quickly, some of the more reputable families and forces expressed their intentions to join the Xiao clan. In an instant, the Shilin region was filled with flags that belonged to the Xiao clan. Within Yen City, a majestic large hall rose from the ground. Numerous pavilions were swiftly built. In less than half a month, all the large and small shops within Yen City had been completely demolished. Instead, they were replaced with a large hall that belonged to Xiao Gate. There was even an enormous black rock erected outside of the eastern city gate of Yen City. If one were to look carefully, the appearance of this rock was actually exactly the same as Xiao Yan's heavy Xian ruler. On this rock, there were 2 bright golden words Xiao Gate carved on it. On the other side, Lu Zhongtian's auction that would last for half a month was also in full swing in the Sand River shop. Dozens of Tier 5 pills. This kind of extravagance had alarmed many hidden families and forces in the western region. Among those people, there were even a few experts whose cultivation had reached the Origin King realm. Such a situation caused Lu Zhongtian to not dare to be careless. Continuously auctioning Tier 5 pills for half a month. This kind of activity could be said to be the first grand occasion in the western region in 100 years. In the auction house, there were only a few hundred people in the large space. This situation seemed bleak, but in reality, the people present already included the majority of the experts in the western region. If these people could gather together, they would definitely be a terrifying force. As for them, they were all here for the Tier 5 medicinal pills. Everyone, the next item will be the finale of today's auction. It's also a Tier 5 pill called the Mirror Breaker pill. On the auction stage, Lu Zhongtian once again took out a jade bottle from his storage ring. There were many such jade bottles within his storage ring. However, in order to obtain the greatest benefit, he still maintained the practice of only auctioning off 3 of them each day. In this way, he would be able to fulfill the request that Xiao Yan had raised while also being able to raise the value of the medicinal pill to the greatest extent. Naturally, it could be considered as having the best of both worlds. When the Mirror Breaker pill was mentioned, a series of gasps immediately rang out in the auction house. Everyone obviously knew the effects of the Mirror Breaker pill. It was a Class 5 pill that could allow Origin transformation experts to break through to returnants. There were quite a few late Origin transformation experts present, and they could not help but burn with desire when they saw the Mirror Breaker pill. Of course, the Origin kings seated at the front also had their eyes set on the Mirror Breaker pill. There were obviously many juniors who were about to reach late Origin transformation in their clans or elders. If they could bring back the Mirror Breaker pill, they would obviously be able to increase their strength. These experts obviously would not miss out on something that would benefit them. The starting price is 1,000 mid-grade spiritual stones. Each increment must be no less than 100. The upper limit is 50,000. Please. Although the treasure was good, the price made the expressions of quite a few people present change. The continuous days of competition and auction had already caused them to use up quite a lot of spirit stones, and there was no lack of people who had used up all their wealth. At this moment, even the origin kings in the front row could not help but change their expressions when they heard Lu Zhongtian's price. It was very obvious that even they were feeling the strain. Chapter 1290. In the auction house, the few people sitting in the front row exchanged glances with each other. A dark and ruthless expression flashed across their eyes. Soon after, these few people once again returned their gazes to the auction stage at this moment. Their gazes were somewhat unfriendly as they looked at Lu Zhongtian on the stage. One of the old men hesitated for a moment before speaking. Chairman Lu, although we all know that the value of this breaking mirror pill is quite high, isn't it a little too much for you to raise the price like this? These few days, we have not said much on account of the fact that it is a rank 5 medicinal pill. However, if you continue to raise the price like this, don't blame us for not buying it. After the old man's voice sounded, his somewhat threatening gaze slowly swept over the crowd behind him. Sensing the cold gaze of the old man, the faces of the people who were originally planning to raise the price immediately revealed a fearful expression. Immediately, they became silent. Although the rules of the auction house did not allow anyone to use any threatening methods here, they were after all experts at the level of King Yuan. Naturally, no one could stop them from doing whatever they wanted to do. After which, the old man once again returned his gaze to the auction stage with a cold smile. He smiled as he looked at Lu Zhongtian, whose expression had darkened. There was no fear in his eyes. I'm sorry, I am only following the arrangement of the customer with this price. If everyone is willing, you can bid for it. If not, please leave this place. Lu Zhongtian naturally understood the meaning behind the words of these people. They did not wish to lower the auction price of the medicinal pill and take away the medicinal pill at a low price. The threatening gaze earlier was directed at the auctioneers as well as him. It was likely that if he was unwilling to lower the price, this fellow would influence the wishes of the people behind. In this way, this medicinal pill would naturally be unable to be auctioned. Hearing Lu Zhongtian's words, the old man below the stage immediately revealed a displeased expression. He stood up and a pair of dark old eyes stared intently at Lu Zhongtian as he coldly said, Lu Zhongtian, I advise you not to be too arrogant. This old man knows that you have joined that whatever Shao Gate, but this is not enough to be your backing. It is merely established by a few King Yuan. If we were to really compete together, our few large clans would not be the slightest bit afraid. You better not give yourself, you seem to be a little too confident in yourself. However, it was also at this moment that a calm voice suddenly sounded out from a certain place in the auction house. Although the voice was not loud, it was enough to attract the attention of everyone present. Even Lu Zhongtian, who was on the auction stage, also looked over with a face full of suspicion. He knew that Xiao Yan was not in the sand shop, and that voice did not belong to him. When everyone looked over, in a corner of the auction house, a man and two women slowly stood up. At a glance, the woman was undoubtedly Langbing Shuang. As for the middle-aged man, he was dressed in a green robe, with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. His awe-inspiring gaze was fixed on the old man who had just spoken. Noticing the three people who stood up, the old man frowned and his heart sank. A bad premonition immediately rose in his heart. I am Shao Gate, Mu Ronghao. After pausing for a moment, the middle-aged man slowly spoke. At the same time, a powerful aura that was comparable to a 7-star origin king instantly spread out from his body, causing the expressions of everyone present to change drastically. The old man's expression turned deathly pale the instant Mu Ronghao's words sounded. This Mu Ronghao was the fourth brother of the Mu Rong clan. As for the woman on Langbing Shuang's right, she was Mu Rong Qianqian, who had already returned to the clan 3 years ago. When he first heard the two words Shao Gate, and then felt the majestic aura pressure from Mu Ronghao's body, fear immediately surged in the old man's heart. He did not expect that there would be other experts from the Shao Gate other than Lu Zhongtian. What was even more unexpected was that the person who came was actually a 7-star origin king. At that moment, even the expressions of the other origin kings beside the old man changed. After a moment of hesitation, they quickly changed seats and put some distance between them and the old man. The old man's face could not help but twitch when he saw this. He could not help but curse inside. After looking around, he looked at Murong Hao with an awkward smile and said in an embarrassed tone, "Senior brother Murong Hao, I'm sorry, senior brother Murong. I only spoke in a moment of anger. I did not have any intention of insulting the Shao Gate. I hope that Mr. does not take offense. As for this medicinal pill, the employer of this medicinal pill is the leader of the Shao Gate." Seeing that the old man had taken the initiative to admit defeat, Lu Zhongtian on the stage could not help but sneer. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man's retreating figure suddenly stiffened. Before he could do anything, two cold gazes suddenly shot over from behind, causing the old man's skinny body to involuntarily tremble. Cold sweat immediately gushed out from his body as he hurriedly said, "If that's the case, then this medicinal pill. I'll take it. I wonder how much Mr. is willing to pay." Lu Zhongtian laughed mockingly and said, 10,000, 50,000. I'll pay 50,000. As soon as the old man's voice fell, his expression changed and he hurriedly changed his words. He could not care less. Under the gaze of everyone present, he hurriedly took out all the remaining spirit stones in his storage ring. After taking the medicinal pill, he hurriedly left. In front of a 7-star origin king, his initial origin king cultivation was too weak. If the old man still dared to be tactless, he did not dare to imagine the consequences. Seeing the old man hastily leave as if he was fleeing for his life, the other origin kings present subconsciously exchanged glances with each other. From the corner of their eyes, they would occasionally glance at Murong Hao behind them. They were extremely nervous in their hearts, as if they were afraid that this fellow would target them again. Fortunately, this matter was settled and the auction was officially over. Murong Hao and the rest also left together. Only then did the cold sweat that had gathered on their foreheads fall. At the same time, they all breathed a sigh of relief. They resentfully forgot about Lu Zhongtian, who was looking at them with a smile on his face, and quickly left. "Fourth uncle, why didn't you directly end that old bastard just now?" He actually dared to look down on the Shao Gate. On the street, Murong Hao's group of 3 slowly walked. After crossing the Sand River, it was time to head to Yen City. At that time, he would be able to meet the master of the Shao Gate. "Huh, girl, why is your temper becoming more and more irritable? Using violence to curb violence is a method to deal with enemies." However, that person merely spoke rudely to the Shao Gate. "I don't have any reason to do anything to him. Now is the time for the Shao Gate to establish its prestige in the Western region. We absolutely cannot let such a small matter affect the overall situation." Hearing this, Murong Hao curled his lips and smiled. His warm hand gently shook Murong Qianqian's little head. Seeing the girl's depressed appearance, he immediately laughed out loud. After which, he led the two of them and quickly headed towards the Shao Gate. Chapter 1291. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Countless experts had gathered in the original Yen City and the current Shao Gate. Most of these people were the leaders of various organizations in the Western region. They were either the masters of sects or the heads of clans, ranging from King Yuan to Do Di. There were countless of them. This was the first time the Western region had seen such a scene in 1,000 years. During this half a month, the Shao Gate had used all the profits they had obtained from auctioning off the medicinal pills to recruit people from all over the Western region. Under the supervision of Tian Ying and the others, the current Shao Gate possessed close to 100 experts at the Do Di level and several dozen origin transformation and returnance experts, excluding the external organizations. This foundation was not just a little stronger than the Maze Valley of the Qin wastelands. Adding on the fact that the various organizations from the outside were constantly joining, the current Shao Gate had already become the #1 organization in the Western region. There was no one in the main seat in the hall of the Shao Gate. A group of people were seated below. Leng Bingshuang, Bai Hua, and the others were present. However, the 5 Tianming brothers stood behind Leng Bingshuang. They naturally could not treat such a scene as they usually did. At this moment, the lively Murong Qianqian's lovely body was lying on Bai Hua's back. Her pair of spiritual eyes would occasionally size up everyone present. When her gaze returned to Bai Hua in front of her, a smile involuntarily appeared on the slightly pursed corner of her mouth. Sensing this, Bai Hua also gently lifted her hand and caressed the girl's delicate jade-like hands. This scene that appeared in the arena caused quite a number of people to feel envious in their hearts. At this moment, Murong Hao's face was a little gloomy as he watched the two lovey-dovey people before him. He could not help but curl his lips. Although he wanted to stop them, the girl had already grown up. He could not possibly teach her everything. Moreover, this young person called Bai Hua did not seem too bad. She had already reached the Origin King level at such a young age. What happened between them? Murong Hao shook his head and sighed in the end. Leng Bingshuang could not help but purse her lips and smile when she saw this. When she turned around, she saw three white-robed figures slowly walking over. They were the three people from the Bai clan. After a few moments of hesitation, the Bai family still decided to join the Shao clan. After all, the Shao clan was currently flourishing, and various forces were continuously joining. If they continued to hesitate, then the threat of Shao Yan might really fall on them. At this moment, when the three of them entered the hall, their gazes immediately swept towards the main seat. Seeing that the seat was empty, the three of them heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. They cupped their hands towards Leng Bingshuang and walked towards the few remaining seats at the side of the hall. Hee, since the three of you are here, don't you want to greet me? However, it was also at this moment that the figure of a young man in a black robe suddenly appeared behind the three Bai clan members. At the same time, a familiar chuckle sounded from his mouth. This person was none other than Shao Yan. Sovereign. The three of them reacted extremely quickly. When they turned around and saw Shao Yan, they immediately changed the way they addressed him. With just one sentence, the relationship between the two parties had become much closer. Upon seeing this, Shao Yan gently smiled and nodded. As his gaze swept around, the others present also swiftly stood up. Numerous gazes that contained surprise and reverence swiftly shot over. Just that attack of Shao Yan's earlier had already displayed his strength. That kind of frightening speed was something that no one present could compare with. The couple of Origin Kings who had left the arena involuntarily felt shocked in their hearts. Not only did this Shao Yan in front of them appear much younger than they had imagined, but his cultivation was also this powerful. At the very least, with their current strength, they were unable to see through Shao Yan's strength. At this moment, even Murong Hao had a grave expression as he looked at Shao Yan. With his cultivation, he was naturally able to vaguely sense that Shao Yan's aura had already surpassed the Origin King level and reached an even higher realm. This brat. After not seeing him for a few years, his cultivation has already stepped into the Origin King level. How terrifying. Sensing Shao Yan's aura, Murong Hao's expression could not help but harden slightly. At the same time, Shao Yan had also discovered Murong Hao's existence. Raising his head, his gaze instantly fell on the latter. In an instant, an invisible pressure abruptly descended on Murong Hao's head, causing his expression to change slightly. However, shortly after, a gentle smile appeared on Shao Yan's face. His gaze swept between Leng Bingshuang and Murong Hao. It seemed that Leng Bingshuang's trip to the Murong family this time had resulted in a much better result than he had imagined. After greeting everyone present, Shao Yan slowly walked towards the main seat in the Great Hall. Behind him, the gazes of everyone present revolved around him. Only when Shao Yan sat down did everyone sit down one by one. This scene was rather impressive. All of you are heroes from various places in the Western region. Being able to gather here with Shao Yan today is my Shao clan's fortune. On the main seat, Shao Yan's gaze slowly swept across the entire hall. After which, he cupped his hands together and said. As soon as these words were spoken, many people present couldn't help but reveal a smile on their faces. Even though everyone present knew that this was merely a compliment, who would be angry after hearing such compliments? However, I also know that although everyone has come to my Shao clan today, I believe that many of you still have a hesitant attitude in your hearts. If that's the case, I will not make things difficult for everyone. If anyone wants to leave now, Xiao Yan will definitely not stop you. Immediately after, Xiao Yan spoke once again. His words caused the expressions of some people present to change slightly. While they were hesitating, Murong Hao, who was sitting opposite Lang Bingshuang, suddenly slowly stood up. Facing Xiao Yan, he cupped his hands together and said, Murong Hao of the Murong family will pass on the message of the patriarch. The Murong family will fully support the establishment of the Xiao clan. As the words left his mouth, a faint aura and pressure spread out from his body. 7-star Origin King. When the few Origin King experts present sensed this, their expressions changed drastically. The remaining trace of hesitation in their hearts was completely eliminated under the pressure of this aura. Lu Zhongtian is willing to join the Xiao clan. Immediately after, Lu Zhongtian, who was behind Murong Hao, also stood up. The words that came out of his mouth also quickly moved the group of experts behind him. I am Bai Ying, representing the Bai clan to join the Xiao clan. First, it was a mysterious 7-star Origin King, then it was Lu Zhongtian, and now it was Xiao Yan and the others. The situation was already very clear, and the Bai clan naturally had no reason to hesitate. Even if they were unwilling to join, they still had to nod their heads. Immediately after, a series of shouts resounded within the hall. This old man, Jing Tiannan, represents my Jing clan to join the Xiao clan. I am Xiao Xing, willing to join the Xiao clan. Chapter 1292. Following the establishment of the Xiao Gate, most of the forces in the western region had also merged into the Xiao Gate. In less than a month, the Xiao Gate's forces had already spread throughout the western region. All the big and small cities and various mines had all belonged to the Xiao Gate. In addition to the continuous recruitment of experts, the Xiao Gate's foundation rapidly grew stronger by the day. Everything within the Xiao Gate was also gradually on the right track. At this moment, unknown to everyone, Xiao Yan had quietly brought the fairy doctor and the rest back to the southern region. Xiao Yan's group was slowly walking on the streets of the savage ancient city. At a glance, the human flow in the city seemed to be much greater than usual. This was especially the case for the number of high-tier experts. It was likely that the number had increased by a couple of times. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan could not help but raise his eyebrows. A trace of astonishment flashed across his eyes. We're leaving just like that? To the side, Bai Hua suddenly frowned and spoke. Only then did she attract Xiao Yan's gaze. If we really tell them directly, I'm afraid that it will be even more troublesome. This way, at least they can safely stay in the western region. Xiao Yan gently shook his head. With regards to the news of their departure, Xiao Yan did not directly tell Lang Bingshuang. He knew that once he said it, it would not be so easy for them to leave. Although it was somewhat apologetic, it could at least save some trouble. To the side, the fairy doctor listened to the conversation between the two. A hidden light flashed across her beautiful eyes. At the same time, in the depths of the Shilin mountain range in the western region, Lang Bingshuang was looking at the jade slip in her hand with a worried expression. Ever since Xiao Yan left the Shilin mountain range, this jade slip had already landed in her hands. She even knew that Xiao Yan was heading towards the central region. All of this had been told to her by the fairy doctor. Although she had 1,000 complaints in her heart, she also knew that Xiao Yan was doing this for her own good. Including the establishment of the Xiao Gate, his goal was still to ensure her safety. After all, just as the fairy doctor had said, the heaven demon Phoenix tribe was eyeing her covetously. Once she appeared in the central region, it was likely that she would bring endless trouble to Xiao Yan. Lang Bingshuang could naturally understand that Xiao Yan was thinking for her, but she was the same. Southern region, ancient city of wilderness. Looking at the large group of figures flying in from outside the city, Xiao Yan couldn't help but frown. He was curious about what had happened here that could attract a large group of experts. Damn it, why is the void lightning pool empty? Not a single bolt of lightning is left inside. What the hell happened? What a mess. This has never happened in the void lightning pool in the past. Could it be that it has something to do with the spiritual pressure on Grey Mountain? Who knows? Although I don't know which expert left it behind, it's indeed a good treasure. However, just the pressure from the soul is something that even origin transformation experts would barely be able to comprehend. People like you and I can't even take a second glance at it, so how can we comprehend it? The group of experts who had returned to the city were constantly cursing. They had spent a lot of time to obtain the Void Lightning Pool invitation. Now that the Void Lightning Pool had opened, the situation inside shocked everyone. The thunderbolt force that had originally filled the sky was completely gone. Moreover, based on the situation, it was obvious that this was caused by someone. This made everyone so angry that they could not wait to tear apart the person who had absorbed all the thunderbolt force. Xiao Yan could not help but blush when he heard the waves of angry curses. He subconsciously rubbed his nose. Bai Hua and the fairy doctor to the side laughed. They had already heard about this matter from Xiao Yan, but they still could not help but laugh when they saw it now. Cough cough, that wasn't me. I never thought that the Northern King would have absorbed all the lightning energy. If they want to tear apart someone, it should be the Northern King. That's right, where's Lian? That girl ran pretty fast, but she didn't know to wait for us. Only when they turned their heads did the three of them discover that Lian, who was walking in front of them, had unknowingly disappeared. When Xiao Yan spread out his spiritual strength to search, he suddenly knit his brows. The little fairy doctor and Bai Hua by the side also involuntarily knit their brows and exchanged glances. Their bodies trembled slightly and the three of them disappeared from the spot. Hee, this girl's looks aren't bad. I wonder which family she is from to be willing to let her out. On the street, right in front of Lian, at this moment, a thin young man with a pale face was looking at Lian, who was like a blooming lotus, with a malicious expression. Two other people blocked the girl from behind. The three brothers had come to the ancient savage city this time for the empty lightning pool. Who would have thought that they would end up empty-handed after entering? Just as they were feeling frustrated, Lian coincidentally bumped into them. Ha ha ha, I'm furious. I was just thinking about where to put out the fire, but I never expected you to bump into me. Since you're already here, why don't you have some fun with me? Behind him, a pale-faced young man laughed lewdly. His scarlet tongue licked his lips, and he immediately grabbed at Lian's slender arm. At this moment, Xiao Yan's group had already appeared behind these three people. Their expressions were indifferent. Just as they were about to intervene, Lian, who was surrounded by these three people and whose pretty face contained a terrified expression, suddenly raised her hand. At the same time that the young man's hand was pushed back, a purple-colored energy pillar also rushed out. Soon after, it violently smashed into the chest of the young man behind her. Xiao Yan's expression changed slightly behind her. His body shifted and the young man's body was violently sent flying by that strength. In the blink of an eye, he had already become seriously injured. Ugh, Xiao Yan and the other two involuntarily felt a little stunned when they saw the scene in front of them. They had wholeheartedly wanted to protect this girl, but they seemed to have forgotten that the three people who wanted to harm her were merely three ordinary Dodi. However, the current Lian had already reached the origin transformation realm. With such strength, there was naturally no need for her to be afraid of these so-called experts. The three of them could not help but look at each other when they thought of this. Soon after, they smiled in disappointment. They only wanted to protect this girl, but at times, they had already forgotten that she needed to experience the process of growing up herself in order to prevent her from being in any danger. Let's go. Let's return to the Burning Flame Valley. The three of them ignored the two stunned young men. The little fairy doctor went forward and grabbed Lian's hand. The group gradually walked further and further away. Only after a long while did the bodies of the two young men suddenly soften. They fell to the ground and no longer made a sound. Chapter 1293. After the group of four returned to the southern region, they did not stop at all as they swiftly headed towards the extreme south. Within a few days, the four of them had returned to the Burning Flame Valley. When Ancestor Fantian heard that Xiao Yan had established his own faction in the western region, the former also expressed his support. He even clearly stated that once Xiao Gate developed to the southern region in the future, the Burning Flame Valley would become Xiao Gate's greatest protection in the southern region. Outside of the Great Hall of the Burning Flame Valley, Xiao Yan's group of 4 heavily cupped their hands together towards Ancestor Fan Tian and First Elder Li Qingxiu in front of them. Their solemn voices slowly spat out as they said, "Seniors, we will meet again in the future. Take care. Take care. Be careful on the road. Once you reach the middle region, remember to keep a low profile. The people there cannot be compared to the southern region." The 2 of them nodded heavily. Immediately, the 4 of them turned around and left. However, just as Xiao Yan's group arrived outside the mountain range where the Burning Flame Valley was located, a familiar figure suddenly flew over from the distance. At a glance, the person who had arrived was Li Bingrui. This woman had originally received news from the fire maple forest in the southern region on the day that Xiao Gate was established and had swiftly returned. Xiao Yan originally thought that he would no longer have any interactions with this person. However, he did not expect that she would rush back at this time. With regards to this, Xiao Yan could only adopt a helpless attitude. On the other hand, when Lian saw Li Bingrui once again, her exquisite pretty face immediately revealed a joyous smile. The 2 girls looked at each other and smiled. Immediately, Li Bingrui's gaze quickly landed on Xiao Yan's body as she slowly said, "I have said before that I will definitely personally kill you. Therefore, don't think that you can escape from me so easily." Xiao Yan could only shake his head when he heard this. He exchanged glances with the little fairy doctor beside him. Immediately, he spoke faintly. His body moved and he flew towards the eastern horizon. "Let's go. It's time to leave." 4 figures followed closely behind. This time, they were heading east. Their destination was the eastern region of the southernmost land, which was under the jurisdiction of the Yunin Pavilion. At the same time, there was a transmission formation that led to the central region. Xiao Yan's heart was filled with hesitation as he looked at the distant sky in the east. The middle region was the most prosperous region in the Yuanwu continent. It was where countless experts gathered. Xiao Xian was also there. Additionally, the other 2 heavenly flames other than Yi Honglian should also be in the middle region. Back then, Xiao Yan had obtained information from Yi Honglian that she was actually unaware of the exact identity and location of the other 2 heavenly flames despite her status. This caused Xiao Yan to be incomparably surprised. The only information Yi Honglian had given him was that he might be able to find information regarding the other 2 heavenly flames in the middle region. Currently, other than the heavenly flames, Xiao Xian, Gue Hall, Luo Jin and the rest were also in the middle region. Even Sonair. All of these were related to him. He had to go to the central region. Now, he had finally embarked on this journey. In the next few days, the group of 5 had been in a state of haste. During this period, other than passing through some cities on foot, almost all of them flew towards the east at the fastest speed possible. Nanlin City was one of the few large cities in the southernmost land. Moreover, unlike other cities, Nanlin City was controlled by 2 clans. Both parties held half of Nanlin City's economy. Although it appeared fair, there were countless disputes. For many years, the 2 clans had been fighting openly and covertly. Until now, the unequal situation in Nanlin City had completely disappeared. Along with it, one of the great clans in Nanlin City had also disappeared. In the end, the dispute between the 2 clans ended with one side winning. The winner became king, and the control of Nanlin City fell into the hands of the victorious party. Recently, the Fuda clan, which controlled Nanlin City, was holding a grand banquet. On one hand, it was to celebrate their complete control of Nanlin City. On the other hand, it was to celebrate the birthday of their ancestor. This banquet could be said to be the biggest event in Nanlin City in many years. Many experts from the surrounding cities had come to celebrate the birthday. For this banquet, there were more than 10 origin kings from various places. This was because the ancestor of the Fuda clan was a super expert who had reached the origin king realm. His name was Fuda Hao. Fuda Hao. On the street, Xiao Yan's group was originally walking toward Nanlin City without any worries. However, when they passed by an enormous mansion, the words that were emitted from the crowd at the entrance caused Xiao Yan's forward footsteps to pause. Even the few people beside him also stopped. Their faces were filled with doubt as they looked at Xiao Yan in front of them. What's wrong? Do you know this Fu Hao? Bai Hua raised her eyebrows. She dared to guarantee that this was the first time both she and Xiao Yan had come here. If this ancestor of the Fu clan had never been to other places, Xiao Yan should not be able to recognize him. I don't know him, but I've heard of this name, and Xiao Yan frowned and quickly recalled the past. When he had first arrived in Yuanwu continent and obtained the Luo Tian cauldron, he seemed to have heard of this name. Fu Hao was the cause of the Luo Tian cauldron's destruction. At the same time, he was also the main culprit who had killed the previous owner of the Luo Tian cauldron. Hiss. Zhou Tong, I did not expect to meet the person who killed you back then. After some careful recollection, Xiao Yan recalled that when he had first obtained the Luo Tian cauldron, the remnant spirit in the cauldron had asked him to kill Fu Hao. Originally, he had wanted to swear on the lightning penalty oath, but because of Gu Yu's appearance, he had skipped that step. However, Xiao Yan was a person who valued his promises. Since Zhou Tong had handed the Luo Tian cauldron to him, he naturally had to fulfill his promise, to kill Fu Hao. Xiao Yan hesitated for a moment in his heart before he slowly shook his head. He had clearly heard on the street that there were still 2 days until Fu Hao's birthday. Since the other party was celebrating his birthday, Xiao Yan had to give him some face. Even if he wanted to kill someone, he would have to wait until the birthday was over. Let's find a place to rest in the city. We have been hurrying along recently and everyone is quite tired. We will continue our journey in 3 days. The little fairy doctor and Bai Hua naturally knew what Xiao Yan planned to do after hearing his words. However, they did not have any intention of stopping him. After all, Xiao Yan had even killed a Genesis Zone level expert. If it was just an ordinary origin emperor, they naturally did not need to worry. After which, a thought passed through Xiao Yan's mind. He spread out his majestic spiritual strength and cautiously probed within the Fu family's manor. Very soon, a deep and powerful aura appeared within Xiao Yan's probing range. Oh, an 8-star origin emperor. Xiao Yan immediately confirmed the latter's identity when he sensed that qi. At the same time that his heart was shocked by the old fellow's cultivation, a somewhat hoarse old voice was transmitted over. You are the first elder. May I know who this friend is? If you are curious, why don't you meet me face to face? Why do you need to resort to such underhanded means? Wonderful Book House. Chapter 1294. Hee, it is said that the ancestor of the Fu family is an expert at the origin emperor level. I was just curious. Xiao Yan smiled indifferently and said. Hearing the clear voice, Fu Hao could not help but feel surprised. From the voice, it was not difficult to tell that the other party was just a young man. At the same time, he could clearly sense that the mysterious young man also had the cultivation of the origin emperor level. A young man with the cultivation of the origin emperor level. This kind of person could not be nurtured with ordinary circumstances. With this thought in mind, Fu Hao immediately paused and said, Who are you? May I know who you are and why have you come to my Nanlin city? I am Xiao Yan. I have rushed here and just wanted to take a rest. I have no intention of disturbing you. Xiao Yan? Hearing Xiao Yan's words, Fu Hao's heart immediately trembled and he hurriedly said, May I ask if you are the Xiao Yan who participated in the battle of the 3 sects in the extreme south? Yes, I am. The latter smiled slightly. At this moment, Fu Hao's heart was filled with shock. He did not expect that the person who had shaken the entire extreme south would suddenly appear here. However, Fu Hao's old face quickly piled up with a smile and he hurriedly said, In that case, I wonder if Mr. Xiao Yan can come to my house for a chat. To be honest, this old man is very impressed by Mr. Xiao Yan's battle. With your own strength, you shook the sect masters of 2 sections. This old man is ashamed of his incompetence. Hearing this, Xiao Yan's heart immediately moved. He smiled and said, You are too kind. Old mister, you flatter me. Since old Mister has personally invited me, and the birthday banquet is just around the corner, then I won't be polite. Ha ha ha, good, good. It is this old man's honor to have Mr. Xiao Yan visit my house. I will inform my clansmen and let them receive you. Thank you for your trouble. Xiao Yan smiled slightly. A glint flashed across his eyes. It was likely that this Buddha Hao would never have imagined that this distinguished guest in his eyes had actually come for his old life. After that, Xiao Yan brought the little fairy doctor and the rest back to the entrance of the Fuda family. Sure enough, there was already a middle-aged man leading a few old men to wait respectfully. His eyes constantly scanned the crowd, as if he was looking for something. When Xiao Yan and the rest came forward, the middle-aged man's gaze also fell on Xiao Yan. Your ancestor invited me here. The few of them had just arrived in front of him when the middle-aged man opened his mouth with a doubtful face. However, the words that came out of Xiao Yan's mouth caused the expressions of quite a number of people present to instantly change. Numerous gazes also swiftly landed on Xiao Yan's body like spotlights. Soon after, those gazes became strange. There were even some mocking expressions that were revealed. This kid must be crazy. Even if he wants to enter the Fuda clan, he shouldn't come up with such a ridiculous reason. Moreover, the one standing before him is the Fuda clan's patriarch. Isn't this just courting death? The previous surprise turned into mockery in the blink of an eye. What kind of status did the ancestor of the Fuda family have? Usually, very few people had even seen him. Even some of the clansmen had not seen his face. This black-robed youth in front of them actually dared to say that Fuda Hao had invited him. This was no different from courting death. However, just as everyone was preparing to watch a good show, that middle-aged man, the clan head of the Fuda clan, swiftly revealed a respectful expression on his originally doubtful face. He hurriedly stepped forward, cupped his hands respectfully to Xiao Yan, and said, "Young Master Xiao Yan, I have been waiting for you." "Sir, I am the head of the Fuda family," Fuda sang. "It was my ancestor who asked me to wait for you here." "Sir, please." Having said that, Fuda sang hurriedly gestured for them to enter. Xiao Yan smiled. Then, under the stunned gazes of the surrounding crowd, he led the little fairy doctor and the rest into the Fuda family's mansion. After a while, Xiao Yan and the rest saw Fuda Hao. His skinny body was draped in a hemp robe. His fingers were like yellow bamboo joints, and he was holding a walking stick. His body was bent like a monster, and his sunken old eyes were like an empty shell. The dim light that shot out from them made people shudder. As he panted, the hoarse sound of breathing from his mouth and nose was even more strange. Luffy knew that this guy was an old monster at the Origin Emperor level. If others saw him, they would think that he was a piece of rotten wood that was about to die. However, under this body, there was an extremely terrifying power. Looking at the old man who was like a dried corpse, Lien, who was behind Li Bingrui, could not help but shrink back. Only Xiao Yan knew that this old man was a character from 1,000 years ago. It was not easy for him to survive until now. Moreover, he had the strength of an Origin Emperor. Mr. Xiao Yan's reputation is like thunder to this old man's ears. The hoarse voice rang out once more. Fuda Hao trembled as he walked forward. He slowly nodded at Xiao Yan. "It's just a rumor from the outside world. There's no need to believe it." Mr. Xiao Yan is truly humble. With a laugh, the old man's gaze landed on Bai Hua and the others behind him. Seeing the group of youths before him, shock immediately flashed through the old man's eyes. Although the youths before him seemed ordinary, their cultivations far surpassed regular cultivators. With a single glance, he could tell that Lien-er's cultivation was the lowest among them, but she was also the youngest. Even with his experience, he had never seen such a young origin transformation expert before. It was difficult to imagine that if this girl were to join a sect in the future, she would definitely become someone that the sect would focus on nurturing. At the same time, he could sense a special presence from Lien-er's body. As for the others, their cultivations were naturally not inferior in the slightest. This group of people could be called the proud sons of heaven among the younger generation. Hee hee, not only is Mr. Xiao Yan a dragon among men, but even your friends are extraordinary. The old man smiled as he slowly swept his gaze over the people before him. In the end, his gaze paused on Lien, An obscure light flashed through the depths of his sunken eyes. After chatting idly for a while, Futu Hao invited this group of people to stay in his Futu residence. Xiao Yan had something in his heart and would naturally not reject the invitation. At the same time, Futu Hao stared at the few of them as they left. When his gaze landed on Lien, the glow deep within his eyes immediately surged. The woeful poison body, he. I heard that the Crossing Disaster sect in the central region once lost their holy maiden. If that holy maiden is her, then there's hope for me to break through to the origin ancestor realm, he. Chapter 1295. Xiao Yan and the others were currently seated in one of the guest rooms of the Futu clan at night. The room was dimly lit, and Xiao Yan and Bai Hua were currently seated around a table with their brows slightly furrowed. Tremendous spirit power enveloped the entire room, forming an invisible barrier that prevented outsiders from seeing what was going on inside. At this moment, Lien was sitting cross-legged on the bed with her eyes tightly shut. The little fairy doctor beside her was pouring her mind into the girl's body to help her control the boundless energy within her body. Although the girl's cultivation had already reached the origin transformation stage, she was still young. In addition, she had been in a deep slumber for many years, so her mind was still immature. Although Xiao Yan and the others had helped her control the woeful poison body, she would still be unable to freely use this power for a very long time. For example, the girl had been unable to control the flow of Genesis Qi in her body in the ancient wilderness. When they had left Futu Hao's place earlier, the little fairy doctor had quickly discovered that the Genesis Qi in the girl's body had gone out of control again. Helpless, she could only use external forces to help her reform the power. Although Futu Hao looks somewhat terrifying, he seems to be a decent person. Are we really going to kill him? Besides Xiao Yan, Bai Hua frowned slightly. She was somewhat hesitant inside. She did not dare to say that she was a good person, but she knew how to distinguish between right and wrong. Futu Hao's actions could be considered open and aboveboard, and he had treated them extremely courteously. It was still unreasonable to kill him. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan's lips curled into a smile. He looked at Bai Hua in front of him in a somewhat playful manner. When did you start talking about benevolence? You didn't act like this when you were in the Lu clan back then. When did I talk about benevolence? I just feel that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for us to have to resolve a dispute between two people 1,000 years later. I'm just taking someone's money to solve their problem. It's not unreasonable, but you're right. That's why I hope to put this matter after his birthday banquet. Before that, let's think about it again. Xiao Yan smiled and shook his head. His gaze then landed on the two people in front of the bed. Seeing the little fairy doctor place all her attention on Lien, a complicated expression involuntarily flitted across Xiao Yan's pitch-black eyes. It was not that he did not understand some things, but he was afraid that if he exposed them, it would only deepen the grudge between the two. What's more, while Xiao Yan was lost in a daze, Lien-er's bed finally let out a long sigh. Under the little guidance of the fairy doctor, she attempted to circulate the qi in her body to slowly control her power. Under the guidance of the little's guidance, Lien-er was trying to circulate the qi under her body's controlling her power. Under the guidance of the little's guidance, qis. Under the fairy under her guidances. Yes, it's not a big deal. It's just that this girl's control of her own power is not complete. She'll be fine after a while. The fairy doctor nodded gently. Her beautiful eyes paused on Xiao Yan before she sat down beside the two of them. Immediately after, the door was opened from the outside. Li Bingrui had just returned from outside. She glanced at Lien-er, who was peacefully cultivating on the bed, and nodded gently. Then, her gaze landed on Xiao Yan and the other two in front of her. She paused and said, I just heard about the matter between the two great clans of Nanlin City. Do you want to hear about it? At the same time, in another part of the Futu family, Futu Hao and the head of the family, Fuda sang, were in a room. Under the illumination of the candlelight, the two of them were discussing something in a low voice. Ancestor, does that girl really have the woeful poison body? Hearing his ancestor's words, Fuda sang could not help but reveal a surprised expression. It was no wonder that the girl was able to possess such a cultivation at such a young age. It was because of this point. Given this old man's eyesight, I am naturally not mistaken. Earlier, this old man had clearly sensed a weak aura from that girl's body. That aura is indeed the woeful poison body. According to this old man's knowledge, the Crossing disaster sect in the central region had once lost their holy maiden many years ago. Back then, that baby girl was the owner of the woeful poison body. If this old man has not guessed wrongly, this girl is that holy maiden, hiss. Hearing this, Fuda sang's expression changed. If that was the case, all these years, the Crossing Adversity sect has never given up on searching for this holy maiden. Now that she has appeared in our residence, if we can bring that girl to the Crossing Adversity sect, our Fuda family will become the second Burning Flame Valley in the extreme south. When he thought about the strength of a source ancestor, a bright light flashed across Fuda Hao's sunken eyes. Once he had the cultivation of a source ancestor, not only would his status in the Fuda family rise rapidly, but his lifespan would also increase. Fuda Hao's hunched body could not help but tremble when he thought of this. His bamboo-like fingers gently stroked his waist. There was an old scar there, and it was because of this that his cultivation had stagnated at the 8-star origin emperor level for so many years. Every time he thought of this, a figure from the past would involuntarily appear in his mind. Zhou Tong, ancestor, don't forget that Xiao Yan is also an origin emperor. Furthermore, it is said that his battle prowess far surpasses ordinary experts of the same level. Moreover, he seems to have a lot of connections behind him. Back then, during the battle between the three sects, he actually invited over 30 origin kings. If we fight them head-on, I'm afraid that it will be somewhat inappropriate. Frowning, Fuda sang finally spoke of the most important point. Xiao Yan was also an origin emperor. If they wanted to snatch someone from him, it would be tantamount to snatching food from a tiger's mouth. Even if the Fuda family was powerful in Nanlin City, it would not be easy to deal with Xiao Yan. Humph, idiot. If you want to capture that girl, why do you need us to do it? We only need to pass the message to the Crossing Adversity sect and obtain enough benefits from them. As for the rest, it will all be up to them. Hearing this, Fu Tuhao snorted coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, he stood up from the chair and walked out slowly with his walking stick. Then, he turned around and looked at Fu Tu Sang again. He said in a deep voice, "You are right, Fu Tu Sang. Immediately send people to the central region tonight. Remember, go to the Crossing Adversity sect as quickly as possible. Before that, I will do my best to delay this group of people. Tell them that if they fail to bring back the Holy Maiden because of their own reasons, then everything will have nothing to do with the Fuda family." With that, Fuda Hao left. After a moment of thought, Fuda Sang followed Fuda Hao's instructions and immediately sent the experts of his family to the central region. Chapter 1296. Zhou Clan. Hearing Li Bingrui's words, Xiao Yan could not help but raise his eyebrows. He immediately thought of Zhou Tong, who was the previous owner of the Luo Tian cauldron. Both of them have the surname Zhou, and they are rivals. Could it be that this Zhou clan is the clan that Zhou Tong belongs to? Xiao Yan rolled his eyes. He involuntarily sighed and shook his head because of this. If this was really the case, it would be a little too dramatic. The two clans had fought with each other for 1,000 years. Although the Fuda clan had won, the ancestor of the Zhou clan had coincidentally gotten Xiao Yan to kill Fuda Hao for him. In this way, the strength of the Fuda clan in the area around Nanlin City would definitely shrink greatly. By the time the various factions came to suppress them, the Fuda clan would no longer exist. In this way, the dispute between the two clans would eventually lead to mutual destruction. During the next 2 days, Xiao Yan's group had quite a good time under Buddha Hao's hospitality. During this period of time, Buddha Hao had repeatedly requested for Xiao Yan's group to stay a little longer. Xiao Yan's face was naturally courteous, but his heart involuntarily felt a little doubtful. It was true that this old man was warm, but it seemed to be a little overboard. Moreover, his tone seemed to be probing. There were a couple of times when his attention was placed on Lian Er. In this regard, Xiao Yan was secretly cautious. He did not expose all of this, but quietly waited for the old man's performance. Originally, Xiao Yan did not have much intention to kill the old man, but his behavior made Xiao Yan feel a little threatened. He did not like the people behind him to be the target of others. Therefore, no matter what the old man had in mind, Xiao Yan would definitely eliminate him before he could carry it out. However, now was not the time. Just as Xiao Yan had said before, after all, it was the old man's birthday banquet. He should at least give him some face. As for taking his life, it would not be too much to talk about it later. The spacious hall was bustling with activity. The entire Futu family was filled with a festive atmosphere. Today was the birthday of the ancestor of the Futu family, Futu Hao. At this moment, the invited experts were either in the courtyard or in the hall. Everyone's face was brimming with joy. Although there was no lack of people among these forces who hated the Futu family to the bone, these people did a perfect job of handling the situation. At this moment, on the main seat in the hall, an old man who looked like he had one foot in the grave sat with a smile on his face. As he watched the guests below greet him, his turbid old eyes could not help but reveal a proud expression. He especially enjoyed this attitude of being surrounded by stars. After a long while, Xiao Yan led the little fairy doctor and the others into the hall. He politely cupped his hands toward Futu Hao, who was sitting on the main seat. Only then did the latter stand up to welcome them. Seeing this scene, the expressions on everyone's faces in the originally lively hall froze. Then, all kinds of gazes fell on Xiao Yan and the others. Many of the people present had heard of this young man who had been personally invited by Futu Hao. However, when they saw him now, they could not help but feel a little surprised. Who exactly was this young man to be treated in such a manner by Futu Hao, who was an origin emperor expert? Everyone, I believe that you are also very curious about who this Mr. is. Futu Hao smiled faintly. The words that came out of his mouth immediately raised the spirits of the people present. Every one of them perked up their ears and waited for Futu Hao to reveal the answer to them. Cuckoo, if we were to talk about it, I believe that this Mister's name is like thunder in everyone's ears. Next, the old me will solemnly introduce everyone. This Mister is the one who participated in the battle between the three sects in the extreme south not long ago. Xiao Yan. Wow. As soon as these words came out, the people present burst into an uproar. Many gazes of disbelief fell on Xiao Yan. It was hard to imagine that this person, whose name shook the extreme south, would actually appear in front of them. Moreover, what was even more shocking was that he had appeared at Futu Hao's birthday banquet. This was undoubtedly a form of support for the Futu clan. After this incident, the status of the Futu family in the southernmost region would be further elevated. At that time, there would be many forces that would join them. Thinking of this, the future of the Futu family would be immeasurable. Futu Hao could not help but sneer inwardly as he gazed at the changing expressions of the people in the hall. These fools probably did not know that after today, not only would the Futu clan's reputation soar, but a source zone level expert would also appear. In the future, the Futu clan would not be limited to the tiny Nanlin city. From today onwards, even the Burning Flame Valley would have to show some respect to them. After everyone present took their seats, the birthday banquet officially began. Everyone present chatted with each other. Their gazes repeatedly swept back and forth between Xiao Yan and Futu Hao. The atmosphere in the hall also became livelier. The entire Futu clan, and even the entire Nanlin city, slowly passed the banquet in a festive atmosphere. It was only late at night that Xiao Yan and the others returned to the courtyard. With a thought, the Genesis Qi in Xiao Yan's body rapidly circulated. The haze on his face swiftly disappeared, and a bright light flashed in his pitch-black eyes as killing intent quietly emerged. After instructing the little fairy doctor and the others, Xiao Yan's body moved. His body flashed and disappeared into the night sky. The few of them looked at each other from where they stood and helplessly shrugged their shoulders. After which, they quietly sat in the courtyard and waited for Xiao Yan to return. On the other side, Fu Hao was slowly returning to his room. Just as he was about to close the door, Xiao Yan's figure appeared in his courtyard like a ghost. Fu Hao immediately frowned and quietly circulated the Genesis Qi in his body. Xiao Yan's arrival did not seem like a good thing had happened. "Mr. Xiao Yan, it's already late. Why don't you rest early?" The old man's eyes flickered. He could clearly sense a murderous intent in Xiao Yan's eyes. Could he have discovered something? With this thought, the uneasiness in Fu Hao's heart grew. Since he had discovered something, why hadn't Fu Hao shed all pretense of cordiality 2 days ago? Why had he waited until now? "Old mister, your birthday is over. I'm here to collect something from you on behalf of someone else." Xiao Yan's expression gradually turned indifferent. Fu Hao also stepped out of the door. His turbid eyes stared intently at Xiao Yan as he said in a low voice, "What do you want?" "Take what?" "Take your life." "On behalf of who?" Luo Tianding, Zhou Tong. Chapter 1297. Zhou Tong. Fu Hao's expression changed when he heard the name that would never be erased from the depths of his mind. His chilling gaze landed on Zhou Yuan's body again as he asked in bewilderment. "That guy isn't dead yet?" "He's dead. He is indeed dead, but before he died, he asked me to kill you," Xiao Yan said indifferently. "You want to kill me for a dead person? Why?" Fu Hao's expression immediately became gloomy when he heard this. His pair of sunken old eyes stared intently at Xiao Yan in front of him. His heart was somewhat puzzled. Xiao Yan smiled in a noncommittal manner when he saw this. "Don't you know why I'm doing this?" Fu Hao's expression froze for a moment. His eyes swiveled, and he seemed to recall something. "The Luo Tian cauldron." Xiao Yan chuckled. With a thought, the Genesis Qi in his body began to circulate through his meridians. A layer of purple flames rose from the surface of his body. "All right, that's all I have to say. Next, let Xiao Yan experience the strength of a person from 1,000 years ago." As his voice faded, Xiao Yan stomped his foot on the ground. Genesis Qi gushed out as his body shot forward. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist, and his figure appeared in front of Fu Hao in the blink of an eye. The fist that was wrapped in flames tore through space forcefully. The invisible space was compressed to the extreme by this terrifying force. In the blink of an eye, it turned into an invisible air cannonball. With a sharp explosion that resounded through the heavens and earth, it suddenly shot out and smashed towards Fu Hao. The old man's cultivation wasn't low, and it wouldn't be easy to deal with him. Hence, Xiao Yan couldn't give him a chance to retaliate. "Heh, young man, this isn't how you should treat an elder." Although Xiao Yan's attack was powerful, Fu Hao wasn't an ordinary person either. How could an 8-star Genesis Emperor be afraid of a brat who had just stepped into the Genesis Emperor stage? Even though Xiao Yan had a great reputation in the extreme south, it was ultimately just a rumor. The old man took half a step back. With a twist of his hands, he held the wooden staff horizontally in front of him. At the same time, vigorous Genesis Qi poured into the staff. The surging Genesis Qi immediately condensed into a thin layer of energy on the staff's surface. In the next instant, Xiao Yan's fist violently collided with the staff. Boom! When the fist landed on the staff, an incomparably domineering force erupted from the staff. The sharp aura left a faint bloody mark on Xiao Yan's fist. Xiao Yan's expression immediately changed when he sensed this. The old man's Genesis Qi seemed to be a little different. Then, a mocking look appeared on Fu Hao's face. His skinny body shook slightly, and surging Genesis Qi immediately rushed out from the staff. Xiao Yan's expression changed rapidly, and he hurriedly retreated. The moment his body came to a stop, several fierce winds whistled through the air. Xiao Yan hurriedly threw out a few punches, blasting the energy streams apart. Even so, the energy streams still shattered Xiao Yan's sleeves. Xiao Yan couldn't help but frown when he saw this. He then lifted his head to look at Fu Hao. What domineering Genesis Chi! With such strength, you are willing to stay in Nanlin City? Xiao Yan narrowed his eyes as he stared intently at the old man opposite him. He could not help but feel surprised in his heart. This fellow's Genesis Chi was extremely domineering. If Xiao Yan had guessed correctly, his Genesis Chi belonged to the metal affinity, which was known for its combat strength. Adding his cultivation, it was likely that Fudu Hao would have few opponents of the same level who could match him. In the extreme south, he could be considered a top expert. Yet, he was willing to lead his clan and stay in Nanlin City. This was truly surprising. It may not be a good thing for people to be too high profile. Take the two great sects for example. Even though they are much stronger than my Fujiheo clan, they still ended up in a miserable state. What's wrong with being the master of a region? At least no one will have any ideas about my Fujiheo clan. Fujiheo pursed his lips and smiled. He didn't seem to care about the so-called power, but no one knew what he was thinking. But now, Mr. Xiao Yan, shouldn't you first consider your situation? I know your battle prowess is extraordinary. You can fight origin emperors as a peak origin king, and you even control the legendary heavenly flame. However, in my eyes, you're just an early origin emperor. In terms of battle prowess, I'm not any weaker than you, and in terms of cultivation, I'm even stronger than you. You're still too young to kill me. The moment his voice sounded, Fu Tu Hao's right hand seized the opportunity to hold the walking stick in a reverse grip. He suddenly waved it and a golden-colored energy pillar immediately shot out. An incomparable sharpness easily cut through the empty space and arrived in front of Xiao Yan in the blink of an eye. The frightening aura that it contained caused Xiao Yan to involuntarily feel shocked despite his mental fortitude. This old fellow was definitely an existence that few could match even among the origin emperors. Fujiheo was definitely the strongest origin emperor Xiao Yan had ever seen. Golden Elephant Mantra, activate. Xiao Yan let out a loud cry in his heart. His body suddenly shook and a sparkling golden light immediately agglomerated on the surface of his body. His 5 fingers were once again clenched into a fist. A frightening force caused the invisible empty space to emit a ka-ka sound. Immediately, he suddenly threw a punch forward. A turbulent and surging strength wildly poured out. The next moment, an earth-shaking buzzing sound appeared. An invisible energy storm flattened the entire courtyard in the blink of an eye. That energy pillar also disappeared with it. Whoosh! Almost at the same time, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. A stooped figure suddenly appeared in front of Xiao Yan. The staff in his hand was like a blade, and he ruthlessly stabbed forward. The attack was fierce and overbearing. In the blink of an eye, the tip of the staff landed on Xiao Yan's chest with a clang. As the sparks flew, an obvious crack appeared on Xiao Yan's golden elephant mantra. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan's expression changed drastically. Fujiheo was definitely the first person in history to be able to damage his golden elephant mantra with just one attack. Golden mountain blade, breaking golden body. It couldn't be more suitable. Fujiheo curled his lips and sneered. The withered hand that was holding the staff suddenly twisted, and the wooden staff in his hand turned into a golden blade in the blink of an eye. Immediately after, Fujiheo's hand that was holding the handle of the blade suddenly loosened. His palm violently hit the end of the handle of the blade. With a cracking sound, Xiao Yan's golden elephant mantra, which had always been successful, was shattered. Chapter 1298. The moment the golden body was broken, Xiao Yan hurriedly gripped the blade with both hands, stopping the blade from sinking into his flesh. His expression changed rapidly as the Genesis Chi in his body rapidly gathered. He had clearly underestimated the old man's strength. The latter's tyrannical metal attribute was far beyond his imagination. Xiao Yan, if this is all you have, the old me can only tell you that it is likely that you will not be able to keep your life today. It has been a long time since I have truly fought. Today, I will use you to exercise my muscles and bones. Butu Hao smiled coldly and released the golden blade in his hand. As he retreated, a surging aura rose from his body. Buddha Hao's originally stooped body swelled rapidly at this moment. In just a few breaths' time, Buddha Hao's body had grown several times larger than before. He had turned into a giant. You're not the only one who can use the golden body. Xiao Yan, try my heavenly dipper body. Fu Tu Hao's enormous body disappeared from the spot in an instant after his deep laughter sounded. The next moment, he had already appeared behind Xiao Yan. His 5 fingers were pressed together as a palm violently smashed toward Xiao Yan's back. Xiao Yan's face was covered with a deep smile. His large body had already disappeared. Boom! Space exploded, and Xiao Yan's figure faded away. The golden blade fell to the ground and was once again grasped by Buddha Hao. Buddha Hao abruptly looked towards a certain spot in the air, where Xiao Yan's figure had appeared. No wonder you can fight an Origin Emperor expert with the strength of a peak Origin King. So it's because of your speed. However, speed alone isn't enough to deal with me. Buddha Hao immediately waved the golden blade in his hand after his voice sounded. The blade glow flashed and swiftly hacked toward Xiao Yan's body. At this moment, Xiao Yan did not dare to be careless. His body flashed and he immediately unleashed the giant elephant skill. His body also transformed into a giant metal giant in the blink of an eye. His large hand was violently rubbed and a fierce flame agglomerated into a large fire ruler between his hands. The giant ruler spun, its broad blade continuously shattering the blade light that shot towards him. At the same time, Zhou Yuan's body swooped forward. As he arrived in front of Buddha Hao, the flaming ruler in his hand collided with the golden blade in his opponent's hand. Clang 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 clang, there weren't any fancy moves. The collision between the two of them was like 2 spinning tops. As they spun around, sparks flew everywhere. Waves of energy swept in all directions, destroying all the buildings in the courtyard. Many experts from the Buder family were standing in the night sky. At the same time, there were also many guests who had yet to leave. Everyone's eyes were filled with surprise as they watched the intense battle in front of them. The two of them, who had been talking and laughing a few hours ago, were now fighting to the death. However, this also made many people gloat. Most people had a disgusted attitude toward the Fuda clan. It was only because their ancestor was too powerful that they were respectful to them. However, since Xiao Yan and Futu Hao had started fighting, they naturally hoped that something would happen to Futu Hao. On the other side, the patriarch of the Buder family, Buder Sang, had already surrounded the little fairy doctor and the others with his people. He didn't know whether they had discovered him leaking information or not, but since the two of them were already fighting, Buder Sang obviously chose to deal with the little fairy doctor and the others first. As long as he could control them, Xiao Yan would hold back. Dealing with them would not be difficult. However, the little fairy doctor and the others remained calm as they stared at the several dozen figures standing before the walls of the courtyard. Although the people present were no weaker than the patriarch and the 2 elders, the strongest among them were only at returnants. It was not difficult for them to deal with these people with their battle prowess. With a flick of his finger, the space beside the little fairy doctor immediately distorted. A silver puppet appeared. Coupled with Bai Hua and Li Bingrui's terrifying battle prowess and her woeful poison body, these people would not be able to do anything to them. My Buder family has treated you as esteemed guests, but I never thought that Mr. Xiao Yan would do something like this. Has my Buder family offended you in some way? Buder Sang's expression could not help but change slightly when he saw the puppet beside the little fairy doctor. Obviously, he had heard about the puppets of the celestial puppet sect. Silver puppets were equivalent to Origin Kings. Coupled with Bai Hua and Li Bingrui, it would not be so easy for them to take down these people. You should know better than us just what kind of people your Buder family is. If you want to fight, just do it. Why waste your breath? Li Bingrui immediately sneered when she heard that. With a thought, an extremely cold presence immediately radiated from her body. At the same time, a curtain of ice condensed in the surrounding space. With a thought, Bai Hua immediately released a powerful aura from her body. The sharp aura caused the faces of many people present to change. Woeful poison body, activate. The little fairy doctor let out a cold cry. Her 10 fingers formed a seal and numerous mysterious symbols swiftly formed on her delicate forehead. Waves of surging destructive aura swiftly spread out from within her body, forming a large poisonous fog that spread throughout the courtyard. The faces of some of the weaker cultivators swiftly turned black and purple the moment they came into contact with this poisonous fog. Their bodies involuntarily fell to the ground. Fu Tu Sang's expression changed drastically when he saw the purple-colored poison fog that was swiftly spreading in the courtyard. His heart felt a shock because of this. It was unexpected that other than the little girl called Lian Er, even this fairy-like woman in Xiao Yan's group also possessed the woeful poison body. In this way, it would be even more difficult for them to deal with the group of people in front of them. Once they made a move, it was likely that before they could control these people, the battle on their own ancestors' side would be declared over. Everything they had done would naturally be meaningless. Damn it! Everyone, retreat and surround this courtyard. Even if we can't fight, we must not let them leave so easily. Buter Sang scolded angrily. Then, he had no choice but to order his people to retreat. Before he had any confidence, he could not let his people suffer unnecessary casualties. On the other side, the fierce battle between Xiao Yan and Buter Hao continued. Xiao Yan's giant elephant skill was not inferior to the old man's body. However, Buter Hao had the advantage in terms of his cultivation. Moreover, his sharp aura had a suppressive effect on Xiao Yan's giant elephant skill. If the battle dragged on, it would be difficult for Xiao Yan to win. Bang! Suddenly, the purple-colored flame in Xiao Yan's eyes gradually dimmed. It turned into a bright red color. At the same time, the purple-colored heavenly flame that covered his body also turned into the bright red lotusy flame. At the same time, the golden body that was agglomerated by the giant elephant's skill became even more real. Chapter 1299. Bang! Their fists collided, and both of them retreated 100 steps back. The moment Xiao Yan's body stopped moving, a sharp energy pillar shot toward him again. His expression did not change at all. Xiao Yan's body, which was wrapped in the red lotus hellfire, shook. He threw out a punch with the back of his hand, causing the energy pillar to explode. Although your combat power is not bad, you are still too young. The difference in cultivation is not something that can be overcome with strength alone. Seeing this, Buter Hao snorted coldly. He waved his hand, and the golden mountain saber once again fell into his hand. The saber shook, and the sharp aura caused the space to tremble. It is still too early to be happy. The outcome has not been decided yet. How do you know that I am no match for you? Hearing this, Xiao Yan smiled coldly. He took a step forward, and the crimson flame immediately turned into a wave of fire that swept out in all directions. Buter Hao did not move. The golden mountain saber shook slightly, and the wave of fire was split into two. At the same time, Xiao Yan's body suddenly rushed forward. He clenched his hand, and the crimson flame condensed into a huge flaming ruler in his palm. His body was as fast as lightning, and in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Buter Hao. The huge ruler carried a ferocious wind that caused the space to fluctuate, and it violently slashed toward Buter Hao, who was as still as a mountain. Under the pressure of such a strong wind, Buter Hao's body did not move. On his face, there was not the slightest hint of caution when the huge ruler was slashing toward him. A pair of turbid old eyes stared at the huge flaming ruler that was getting closer and closer. When the distance between the two of them was only half a foot, Buter Hao casually took a step to the left. The huge ruler fell, but it brushed past Buter Hao's shoulder at an extremely dangerous angle. This ferocious attack did not have any effect. Almost at the moment Xiao Yan's attack missed, Buter Hao suddenly turned his body, and a whip kick was aimed at Xiao Yan's head. The attack was as swift as lightning, and it was powerful and overbearing. When Buter Hao's kick landed, a deep sonic boom reverberated, as if an explosion had occurred underground. It was dull and horrifying. In the face of Buter Hao's swift and cold attack, Xiao Yan did not dare to be careless. When he used the sky extinction step, he immediately turned the huge flaming ruler. In the end, Buder Hao's attack still landed on the ruler and Xiao Yan's body. He took the opportunity to retreat. When Buder Hao's attack landed on the huge ruler, a powerful force suddenly surged out and blasted the huge flaming ruler apart. The flaming ruler turned into flames that filled the sky and enveloped Buder Hao. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the spectators could not help but change. Although they had heard many stories about Xiao Yan, he was still an expert in the initial stage of the Origin King realm. In front of an 8-star Origin King, he was still too inexperienced. Humph. I really overestimated you. Buder Hao strode out of the flames without fear. Although it was a heavenly flame, it had already been destroyed by him. Naturally, he would not take it seriously. Moreover, his Tiangang body was indestructible. Just this little bit of flame would not be able to hurt him. Hee, if it's just based on physical strength, I'm afraid I'm not your match. Even if it's based on cultivation, you are still far from being my match. I've been an 8-star Origin King for hundreds of years. Even if my cultivation has not improved, I'm still not someone a little brat like you can compare to. Before Xiao Yan could finish his sentence, Buder Hao laughed coldly. Then, he held the golden blade in one hand and stared at Xiao Yan with a cold gaze. He said slowly, remember, you asked for everything that happened today. Originally, I was still looking for the whereabouts of the Luo Tian Ding. However, since you've delivered yourself to me, I'll gladly accept it. As he spoke, Buder Hao took a heavy step forward. However, after taking 2 steps, before he could take a 3rd step, his body suddenly stiffened. His muscular body immediately felt an intense pain in his heart. At the same time, the old man's body could not help but tremble. His old face also became distorted. This is the karmic fire of the Red Lotus. I'm sure you've heard of it before. Its specialty is to burn and devour the body. Even if you have a diamond body, it will not be a problem for you. Xiao Yan softly laughed. Buder Hao's strong body gradually shrank after his words sounded. Finally, he once again returned to his stooped state. At this moment, the flesh on his body, regardless of whether it was his shoulders, waist, or legs, had been completely devoured by the flame, revealing the dense white bones beneath. Due to the burning of the flame, not even the slightest bit of blood seeped out from the places where the flesh was missing. The karmic fire of the Red Lotus, brat, you're despicable. Fu Tuhao endured the intense pain that was being transmitted from all over his body. His face was filled with fury as he looked at Xiao Yan. He had never expected that the Tiangang body that he was so proud of would be broken in such a manner. Old sir, aren't these words a little too laughable? You are using the cultivation of an 8-star Origin Emperor to deal with a junior, yet you say that I am despicable? Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan could not help but sneer. There was no reason to speak of in this world. Tactics were just one way to win. If this old fellow could use the cultivation of an 8-star Origin Emperor to suppress him, he could naturally use the heavenly flame to break through his golden body. If it were not for the karmic fire of the Red Lotus, it would not have been so easy for him to break through the old fellow's Tiangang body. Upon hearing this, Buder Hao's wrinkled old face could not help but turn slightly green. The anger in his heart burned even more. A junior, a mere early-stage Origin Emperor, dared to be so presumptuous in front of him. Xiao Yan was the first person in 1,000 years to do so. Huff, Buder Hao suppressed the anger in his heart and slowly closed his eyes. The moment he opened them, a sharp light flashed in the depths of his turbid old eyes. The space in front of him distorted slightly. Immediately after, he held the golden blade tightly in one hand and waved his arm. The vigorous aura in his body surged again. Kid, you will pay the price for your arrogance. As he roared, Buder Hao's hunched body suddenly jerked. He raised the golden blade in his hand, and Genesis Chi frantically gushed out from his body. At the same time, waves of powerful and domineering force rapidly gathered in the surrounding void. In the blink of an eye, the force transformed into dozens of giant golden blades that emitted golden light. Great Tao Technique. Chapter 1300. Great Tao Technique. Mountain-shattering blade. When Buder Hao shouted angrily, he immediately grasped the hilt of his sword tightly. When he raised the Golden Mountain sword above his head, the golden swords that were formed by the power of the great path in the void around him turned into streaks of golden light and quickly merged into the Golden Mountain sword. With the continuous infusion of these powers, the Golden Mountain sword, which was originally about 1 meter in size, rapidly expanded. The blade emitted a dazzling golden light, turning the dark night into day. Streaks of sharpness emanated from it. As the blade vibrated slightly, the void was mercilessly torn apart. A powerful aura spread from the Golden Mountain blade, causing many of the experts present to reveal looks of horror. Buddha Hao was indeed an 8-star Genesis Emperor. Once his cultivation was fully displayed, the so-called Origin Kings were nothing. As the crowd retreated, they hurriedly circulated the Genesis Chi in their bodies and rapidly formed a protective shield around their bodies. In the distant void, the patriarch of the Fudu clan, Fudu Sang, watched the scene before him with a solemn expression. He naturally understood his ancestor very well. Once the mountain-shattering blade was used, no one below the Genesis ancestor level would be able to survive. This time, Fu Taheo wanted to decide the outcome of the battle in one round. At the same time, on the opposite side of Buddha Hao, Xiao Yan wore a stern expression as he watched the scene in front of him. His heart was quietly awed. This old man was an 8-star Origin Emperor after all. His fighting strength was extraordinary. With Xiao Yan's current strength, he was really no match for this old man if he did not use his trump card. At this moment, Xiao Yan admitted that with his current fighting strength, he was at the very most equal to an ordinary 5-star Origin Emperor. Despite this, Xiao Yan still felt somewhat dissatisfied in his heart. However, he did not know just what kind of situation would occur if his thoughts were to spread to the ears of others. With his initial Genesis Emperor cultivation, Buddha Hao was able to contend with an 8-star Genesis Emperor for a long time without being defeated. In fact, his battle prowess was already comparable to an ordinary 5-star Genesis Emperor. Others could not wait to be envious of him, but he was still dissatisfied. Although Xiao Yan was dissatisfied, Buddha Hao was already prepared to decide the victor with him. At such a time, he naturally could not continue to hesitate. As his gaze turned back, Xiao Yan's heart trembled slightly. A glint flashed in his eyes, and with a flip of his right hand, the heavy Xian ruler appeared in his hand. With a gentle shake of the ruler, blazing flames immediately rose from it. Waves of Genesis Chi flowed through the various meridians in his body and rapidly gathered in the giant ruler. At the same time, a surging power rapidly gathered in Xiao Yan's left palm. "Brat, before you die, I'll let you know what a true Origin Emperor is." A thunder-like furious cry was emitted from Fu Tuhao's mouth. At the same time, the Golden Mountain blade in his hand, which was raised high above his head, was wrapped in a frightening energy as it tore through the empty air and charged toward Xiao Yan like a flood. The frightening energy contained in it suddenly erupted at this moment. Mountain-breaking blade, mountain-breaking river, break. The bright golden glow fell from all directions like a falling meteor. It carried a sharp ear-piercing explosion as it cut through the air in a lightning-like manner and shot toward Xiao Yan in the distance. The empty space collapsed wherever the golden light passed. The courtyard below was also completely destroyed. The enormous manor where the Fuda clan was located also collapsed because of it. The full-power attack of an 8-star Genesis Emperor was so terrifying. In the face of such a powerful attack, everyone's expression instantly changed. Even the experts of the Buddha Hao clan paled. Such a sharp momentum and the perfect fusion of Great Tao power and Genesis Chi meant that the Great Tao skill unleashed would be even more terrifying. No one below the Genesis ancestor level would be able to block this attack. Although Xiao Yan isn't comparable to ordinary Genesis Emperors, if he wants to defeat my ancestor, he overestimates himself. A cold smile involuntarily appeared on Fu Tu Sang's face when he sensed the frightening energy contained in Fu Tu Hao's blade. It was as though he had already seen Xiao Yan's ending. After all, the gap between their cultivations caused this originally disparate fight to appear even more meaningless. Bzz. Xiao Yan took a step forward, and a wave of fire swept out. His eyes, suffused with purple flames, stared intently at the approaching golden blade. His face was cold and callous as he gradually tightened his grip on the heavy buster sword. The veins on his arms bulged like small wriggling snakes. Flames flowed on the giant buster sword, and the purple flames were embedded in the cracks of the giant buster sword. The body of the buster sword gradually turned red and scalding. Xiao Yan inhaled a deep breath of the slightly hot air. His expression turned flushed red. Immediately, the heavy Xian ruler in his hand was violently swung from bottom to top under the focus of the countless number of gazes around him. Ancient heavenly flame ruler. A wild cry suddenly sounded. Immediately, 100 feet large purple ruler glow shot out explosively from the heavy ruler in a frightening manner with an irresistible force. The moment the ruler glow shot out, the space rippled like the surface of a lake with a huge rock thrown into it. Circle after circle of invisible space ripples swept out like waves. In an instant, the already crumbling Futu Manor had a huge crack that was about 10 feet wide. It followed the trajectory of the ruler glow and quickly spread out under the shocked gazes of the surrounding people. The huge purple ruler glow broke through the air like lightning. Countless gazes paused in midair, and their faces were filled with shock as they waited for the result of the collision between the two balls of destructive energy. Boom! At a certain moment, a blinding light shone down from the sky. The energy between the heavens and the earth raged wildly. In the empty space, the purple light and the dazzling golden light finally couldn't withstand the abnormal movement of the energy. Suddenly, a thunderous explosion sounded, and a ferocious and terrifying energy storm swept out from midair. Wherever the storm passed, the entire empty space and even the manor city below were greatly affected. Kacha! Suddenly, a slight cracking sound was emitted from the empty space that no one could look directly at. The hearts of countless people trembled as they abruptly lifted their heads. Some of the strong people present could faintly see that the purple ruler glow, which was colliding with the huge golden blade, had quietly exploded and formed a crack. From the looks of it, it seemed that Futuhao's mountain-breaking blade was superior to the two Do skills. Chapter 1301. That kid finally can't hold on any longer. The scene that appeared in the midair also caused quite a number of members of the Futu clan to exclaim. They clearly understood that this was the final fight between both parties. If anyone was the first to be unable to endure, the outcome would naturally be obvious. At this moment, Xiao Yan's ruler glow was the first to shatter. His defeat had already been revealed. The number of crack lines on the majestic ruler glow increased in front of a countless number of anxious gazes. Although the glow on the golden blade of his opponent was also gradually weakening, it was clear that Xiao Yan's purple flame ruler glow was the first to be unable to endure. Xiao Yan's ancient everlasting ruler is no match for that old man's great Dao skill. At this moment, the expressions of Bai Hua and the rest in the courtyard had turned ugly. The Genesis Qi within their bodies involuntarily began to circulate. They were ready to intervene if any unexpected changes were to occur. Among the few of them, the little fairy doctor was undoubtedly the most anxious. A purple glow suddenly surged in her bright pretty eyes. Even if her cultivation was insufficient, she would definitely make the Futu clan pay a terrible price if anything happened to Xiao Yan. As for Futu Sang and the others, their faces were filled with mockery. Xiao Yan's defeat was already set in stone, and Bai Hua and the others would naturally not be able to escape death. As long as Lian and the little fairy doctor were left behind, the others would naturally be useless. With these two women, the Futu clan would be able to make a meteoric rise. Even if they didn't go to the central region, no one in the extreme south would be a match for the Futu clan, not even the Burning Flame Valley. Something's not right. The Genesis Qi in that guy's body seems to be continuously draining. Li Bingrui, who was frowning slightly, suddenly spoke. Her words caused the little fairy doctors and Bai Hua's expressions to change. While they were puzzled, their gazes also fell on Xiao Yan. Sure enough, although Xiao Yan's expression was calm, his aura was much weaker than before and was still weakening. Even if he had used the ancient everlasting ruler, this shouldn't be the case given the current situation. Boom! However, The enormous shocking ruler glow in the sky was finally unable to endure the frightening might of the golden blade while this group of people were feeling doubtful. It emitted a bang and was shattered from the middle. The entire ruler glow also burst apart in an instant. Hot waves of fire suddenly swept out and once again destroyed the manor below. Keek keek. Xiao Yan, this is the end. Die. A cold smile surfaced on Buddha Hao's ferocious old face as he watched the startling greatness ruler glow completely collapse. Although his mountain-breaking saber had consumed a lot of energy in this clash, it was not difficult for him to kill Xiao Yan with the remaining energy in it. In the sky, the golden blade glow, which had dimmed down, carried the radiance of victory as it completely destroyed the ruler glow. The appearance of this scene also caused everyone present to understand in their hearts that the outcome of this exchange had already been decided between the two. Attack. Other than the little fairy doctor and that girl, kill the rest. At the same time, Buddha Hao's face, which was filled with a ferocious smile, turned to look at the little fairy doctor's group below. As his hand rose and fell, his cold voice, which was filled with killing intent, was spat out from his mouth. The surrounding experts from the Buter clan also let out furious cries as they charged toward the little fairy doctor's group below. On the other side, the surrounding crowd could only withdraw their gazes somewhat bitterly. Fortunately, they did not fall out with the Buter clan because of Xiao Yan's attack. Otherwise, their fates would likely be much more miserable than theirs. In the sky, Xiao Yan looked at the golden blade glow that was rapidly magnifying in his eyes. There was no visible change in his calm expression. His gaze swept across the void and looked directly at Buter Hao. When the latter saw this, he first frowned. Then, he let out a disdainful sneer. Even before his death, he still wanted to be mysterious. In the next second, Xiao Yan flipped his right palm, and the dark heavy buster sword was stored in the storage ring in the blink of an eye. With a flick of his finger, a ray of black light instantly shot out. Almost at the same time, in the void in front of Xiao Yan, the great path tent condensed in the blink of an eye. His footsteps changed, and he instantly executed the heavenly extinction step. In the next second, the void beside Buter House suddenly distorted. When his expression changed drastically, the golden blade in his hand ruthlessly slashed toward the void without hesitation. Boom! In the sky, a huge blade glow exploded with a bang. A purple figure also appeared in the brilliance that filled the sky. The moment Buter Hao's old eyes swept across, he saw an expressionless figure. The void that the golden blade had previously swept across was empty. It's over. It was at this moment that a cold and low voice quietly sounded in Buter Hao's ears. The instant his pupils abruptly shrank, an ice-cold palm lightly pressed against his chest. Heart-shattering palm. Explode. When the palm landed, Buter Hao's hunched body violently trembled. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and the life in his eyes rapidly faded. The moment his body fell, Xiao Yan beckoned with his hand, and a storage ring appeared out of thin air. Xiao Yan caught the ring in his hand, and his body involuntarily trembled. His originally rosy face turned pale in the blink of an eye. Consecutively using a battle skill consumed a lot of Genesis Chi, not to mention that in order to deal with this old fellow, he had used the heart-shattering palm, an E-class battle skill that he didn't dare to use easily. Not only did it consume his Genesis Chi, but it also consumed a lot of his spirit power. Fortunately, he had successfully dealt with this old fellow. After stabilizing his body, Xiao Yan turned around and looked indifferently at Buter Sang and the others, who were charging towards the little fairy doctor and the others. With a thought, the North King immediately rushed over. In the sky above the courtyard, Buter Sang was leading a group of clan members to besiege the four figures in front of him. Fierce attacks continuously rushed forward, trapping the four in the courtyard. Although the number of Origin King experts on both sides was equal, the little fairy doctor and the others didn't have much room to retaliate. Her poison mist could only block the attacks for a while, but it couldn't last for long. Bai Hua, Li Bingrui, and the puppet each faced a Origin King expert from the Buter clan. At this moment, the collision between the 6 people on both sides was growing more and more intense. Bai Hua and Buter Sang each sent out a palm strike, and both figures rapidly retreated. Bai Hua's expression was cold, while Buter Sang's brows were constantly furrowed. As he retreated, a figure suddenly caught him from behind. Patriarch. Buter Sang raised his brows, and his face lit up with joy. He hurriedly turned around, but what entered his eyes was an ice-cold and indifferent face. Chapter 1302. Bang! When Buter Sang saw the North King in midair, his expression froze. The North King's fist landed squarely on his chest. A thunderous explosion sounded from within Buter Sang's body. He immediately spat out a large mouthful of blood mixed with pieces of his internal organs. His entire body fell from the sky uncontrollably, and the vitality in his eyes quickly dissipated. Hua! The appearance of this scene immediately shocked the surrounding experts. The scene of Xiao Yan killing Fu Tuhao earlier had yet to be erased from their minds. At this moment, the Northern King had simply killed an expert of the Origin King class with a single punch. This caused the hearts of these people to feel even more shocked. Killing a Origin King with a single punch. With this strength, the fighting strength of this puppet was at least at the Origin Emperor class. In other words, there were 2 Origin Kings and 3 Origin Kings in Xiao Yan's team. Such a team could be compared to a sect even in the extreme south. This time, the Buter family had really met a tough opponent. After being shocked, everyone's faces were naturally filled with gloating expressions. They did not have any good impression of the Buter clan. Now that Fu Tuhao was dead, the Buter clan no longer posed much of a threat to them. If the clan leader and the 2 elders were to die in Xiao Yan's hands, would it not be easier for them to take over this Nanlin city? Clan leader. At the same time, the 2 elders of the Buter family also noticed the situation here. Their expressions suddenly changed, and a crazy killing intent rose in their hearts at this moment. Xiao Yan. You killed my ancestor, destroyed my Buter family business, and now you dare to kill my clan leader. You have gone too far. Even if I have to risk my life, I will definitely kill you here today. The ancestor and clan head had both died. The situation was already over. One could easily imagine the fate of the Buter clan. Faced with all of this and once again looking at Xiao Yan, who had caused this current situation, the hearts of the 2 elders were filled with an endless hatred. The 2 of them exchanged glances with one another. A craziness surfaced in their turbid old eyes. The expression on their old faces had also become ferocious. As the seals in their hands changed, the Genesis chi in their bodies suddenly began to surge violently. From the looks of it, the 2 were planning to self-destruct in order to take revenge on Xiao Yan's group. The surrounding experts' expressions changed drastically when they sensed the changes in the 2 elders' energy. Even they did not dare to underestimate the power of an Origin King expert's self-destruction. These 2 lunatics. The Genesis chi in their bodies surged wildly, causing the bodies of the 2 old men to swell uncontrollably. They were like balloons that were rapidly inflating. At the same time that their skin burst apart, bright red pillars of blood continued to shoot out from within. A savage and painful expression was revealed on the twisted faces of the 2 old men. However, Xiao Yan flipped the 5 fingers on his right hand a moment later. 5 dark black steel needles immediately appeared in his palm. Without any hesitation, he immediately shot them out. 5 steel needles streaked across the sky like black lightning bolts. Just as the energy in the 2 elders' bodies swelled and their bodies were on the verge of exploding, their bodies trembled in unison. The moment the steel needles shot into their bodies, the rampaging Genesis chi in the vortex instantly quieted down. The 2 elders lost control of the vortex, and all Genesis chi involuntarily flowed out from all parts of their bodies. Their swollen bodies gradually returned to their original appearance. As they watched their bodies gradually recover, there was no joy in their eyes. Instead, their eyes were filled with endless pity. They did not even have the ability to commit suicide. Initially, my target was Fu Tuhao. I didn't intend to attack you. However, you shouldn't have attacked my friend. Xiao Yan's expression was indifferent as he slowly spat out these words. The Northern King suddenly attacked when his words sounded. 2 palms slammed heavily on the heads of the 2 old men. One could hear a low, deep sound of bones shattering. The bodies of these two old men fell uncontrollably. After which, Xiao Yan glanced at the remaining members of the Fuda clan in the blink of an eye. Everyone hurriedly withdrew upon seeing this. Their expressions changed drastically. Their eyes were filled with horror. At the same time, they also knew that the Fuda clan was completely finished. They would definitely become homeless dogs. Xiao Yan glanced at the little fairy doctor and the others below. After confirming that they were fine, he slowly exhaled. Just as he was about to descend, a ray of sunlight pierced through the dark night in the distant eastern horizon and shone on Xiao Yan's face. It was dawn. While the Fuda clan was being dealt with, in a vast mountain forest in the central region, a young man in black robes slowly withdrew from his cultivation on a cliff. The moment he opened his eyes, he saw the light of dawn shooting from the eastern horizon. Hugh, the young man slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air that had been suppressed in his chest. As he felt the power in his body that was even more vigorous than before, the corners of his mouth could not help but curl into a mocking smile. 6-star Origin Emperor. If I continue at this speed, I believe that my cultivation will be able to advance to the Origin Ancestor level in less than a year. When that time comes. As he thought about his future prospects, a blazing look involuntarily flashed across the young man's eyes. This matter cannot be rushed. Before you possess sufficient strength, it is best not to easily expose yourself. Otherwise, once they set their eyes on you, it will be very difficult for us to escape. Immediately after, the space beside the young man suddenly distorted. Soon after, an old figure with a slightly illusory body appeared beside him. Teacher is right. They already have doubts about my cultivation speed. If I am too eager for quick success, I'm afraid that old fellow will personally take action against me. Heh, that girl is his favorite. Anyone would be cautious. Don't be anxious. There will always be someone more concerned about this matter than us. As long as we control her, there will be no need to be afraid that old fellow won't listen to us obediently. Hearing this, the old man laughed coldly. His pair of sinister old eyes contained a trace of resentment. If it were not for that person, he would not have ended up in such a state. Fortunately, everything that had happened in the past was now placed in front of him, waiting for him to take it back. May I ask, is this the woeful disaster mountain range? Chapter 1303. Just as the master and disciple were chatting with a cold expression, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared in the sky not far away and interrupted the conversation between the two. In almost an instant, two cold gazes landed on the middle-aged figure, and the corners of his mouth curled into a cold sneer. The young man involuntarily licked his lips, as though he had seen his prey. Seeing this scene, the expression on the middle-aged man's face became a little uncomfortable, and he felt a wave of fear in his heart. A bad premonition quickly rose from the bottom of his heart, and he did not dare to hesitate. He immediately cupped his hands towards the two of them and was about to leave. Ha ha ha, since you have asked so politely, I should reply. It's just that I was a little hungry just now. Did I scare you? However, just as the middle-aged man turned around, the young man's figure appeared in front of him like a ghost. There was a warm smile on the young man's face, and there was not the slightest trace of coldness in his eyes. It was as if he was a completely different person from before. Not only that, the middle-aged man was also extremely shocked by the young man's strange movement technique. The seemingly young black-robed young man in front of him was actually able to flash in front of him in the blink of an eye. This scene was really shocking. The middle-aged man acknowledged that the cultivation of a 5-star origin king was not considered too strong. However, this young man in front of him really caused him to feel that it was difficult to imagine. This speed was likely comparable to Xiao Yan, who was still resting in his clan. The man in front of him was actually another monster with a cultivation talent that could be called heaven-defying. Huh, sir, you must be joking. I was just impulsive just now, so I disturbed sir. If I have offended you, please forgive me. When the middle-aged man regained his senses, the expression on his face quickly changed. He laughed dryly, and cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Only then did he hurriedly bow to the young man in front of him with a respectful attitude. After all, this world still belonged to the strong. With enough strength, even the most arrogant person would have to bow down obediently. When the young man saw the middle-aged man's attitude, he couldn't help but have a smug look on his face. Immediately, he waved his hand and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I'm sorry. It's fine. Since you asked whether this is the Wretched Disaster Mountain Range, I will tell you that this is the Wretched Disaster Mountain Range, and it is the territory of the Dewey sect. May I know why you have come to the Dewey sect?" This, although he had already confirmed the doubts in his heart, the young man's words still made him feel somewhat at a loss. After all, it was a mission given by the patriarch. However, the person standing in front of him was an Origin King expert whose cultivation was not weaker than Xiao Yan. Under such pressure, the middle-aged man could not help but hesitate. Don't worry. I am from the Dewey sect. My name is Su Zhen, and I am a disciple of the Dewey sect. If you have any questions or anything else, you can tell me. I will pass on the message for you. If you don't believe me, I can bring you in. Su Zhen had a warm smile on his face. When the middle-aged man saw this, the worry in his heart naturally lessened. Although he still had some doubts in his heart, in the end, he still told Su Zhen the purpose of this trip. When Su Zhen heard Xiao Yan's name from the middle-aged man's mouth, the expression on his originally calm face instantly became gloomy. A bloodthirsty killing intent uncontrollably surged out from within his eyes. He actually completely ignored the words of the middle-aged man. It was a long while later before he slowly said in a low and hoarse voice, "Xiao Yan, the Xiao Yan clan's Xiao Yan." Good. Xiao Yan, is he coming to the middle region? We will have to settle the debt between us. Seeing the sudden change in Su Zhen's expression, the middle-aged man's heart could not help but shiver inwardly. Genesis chi quietly circulated in his body as his body retreated almost imperceptibly. He could faintly sense that Su Zhen's mood was rapidly deteriorating. If he continued to stay, he would only bring trouble to himself. "Sir, I hope you won't forget the request of my Fuda clan." "We will, ugh." However, before the middle-aged man could finish his words, a blood-stained palm instantly pierced through his chest. Then, the purplish-black poisonous fog rapidly condensed in the palm, forming a vortex. At the same time, a ferocious suction force surged out. The middle-aged man's body began to twist uncontrollably at this moment, and a miserable and painful hiss came from his throat. The poisonous fog spread, and when it enveloped his entire body, the hiss gradually faded away. In the end, the poisonous fog, along with his entire body, converged into the palm, becoming a part of Su Zhen. After a long time, Su Zhen opened his eyes again. A faint light flashed in the depths of his eyes as a gentle smile rose from the corners of his lips. His cultivation had finally stabilized at the 6-star Origin Emperor stage. With the help of the poison mist, his strength was now close to the intermediate 6-star Origin Emperor stage. It was time to leave. Xiao Yan, and that legendary holy maiden. Teacher, disciple knows what to do. As the laughter in his heart faded, Su Zhen slowly stood up with a warm smile on his face. He looked towards the young lady who was carefully walking over with light and graceful steps as a clear laughter was spat out. "You lass, instead of cultivating properly, you want to tease me again. You're still 100 feet away, but I've already discovered you." Su Zhen chuckled softly, while the young lady stuck out her tongue with a slightly red face. The former walked forward, his large hand gently rubbing the latter's small head. Soon after, he pulled her up with one hand and headed down the mountain. "Let's go. It's time to go back. The sect master knows that you've snuck out for me again. I'm afraid he'll punish you." Su Zhen chuckled softly like a heartwarming big brother. The young lady followed closely behind him. When she heard Su Zhen's words, she playfully curled her lips and quibbled, "How did I snuck out? I didn't sneak out. I clearly came out from the side door. Besides, my father can't control me. If he punishes me, you will definitely help me vent my anger, right?" The young lady took 2 steps forward and leaned her delicate body against Su Zhen's arm as she spoke with an expectant expression. The latter tilted his head slightly to look at the lass beside him. He paused for a moment before wrapping his arm around the young lady's delicate shoulders and chuckled, "Of course. Of course. No matter what, I will definitely side with you. If anyone wants to take you away from me, then they will definitely pay a painful price." As he spoke, Suzhin turned his head back. A glint flashed in the depths of his eyes. The young lady in his arms had a blissful expression, as if she had already found the most precious person in her life. Chapter 1304. Southern Region, Extreme South, Nanlin City. Xiao Yan's group was seated cross-legged and resting in a somewhat dilapidated courtyard. At this moment, a storage ring was quietly lying in Xiao Yan's hand. This was the storage ring that he had taken from Fu Tuhao's corpse. That old fellow was an expert at the Origin Emperor class and had lived for 1,000 years. It was likely that there were many treasures within the storage ring. Now that he was dead, everything within the storage ring should naturally belong to him. With a thought, the surging spiritual strength in Xiao Yan's body immediately surged. After which, it condensed into a strand and entered the storage ring in his palm. With the insertion of the spiritual strength, everything in the storage ring was also reflected in Xiao Yan's mind. High-class qi methods, dose skills, a collection of medicinal pills, countless spiritual stones, and even quite a number of extremely precious medicinal ingredients and some formation plates. If these things were taken out, it would definitely cause a huge commotion in the outside world. However, now, they all belonged to Xiao Yan. Unfortunately, although the collection within this storage ring was quite great, there were very few things that could enter Xiao Yan's eyes given his current eyesight. After a simple investigation at this moment, Xiao Yan slowly withdrew his spiritual strength somewhat unwillingly. However, just as Xiao Yan's spiritual strength was about to withdraw from the storage ring, an inconspicuous fragment suddenly appeared in Xiao Yan's mind from a certain place in the storage ring. Almost at this moment, the spiritual strength that was about to withdraw suddenly paused. After which, a light flashed on the storage ring and a small piece of black parchment appeared in Xiao Yan's palm. A pair of pitch-black eyes stared intently at this small piece of broken parchment in front of him. He felt a somewhat familiar aura on it as well as the special strength that it contained. The expression in Xiao Yan's eyes gradually froze. After which, it turned into shock and joy. Ha 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 ha, in the courtyard, uncontrollable laughter was emitted from Xiao Yan's mouth and reverberated in the air above the manor. However, when the people outside heard it, their expressions changed and they hurriedly retreated. It was as if they were afraid of angering this person. At this moment, in the courtyard, the little fairy doctor and the others were looking suspiciously at Xiao Yan, who had suddenly laughed out loud. Although they could feel the joy in his heart, this was a little too exaggerated. The Origin Returning Art. I really did not expect it to be in Fu Tuhao's storage ring. It is really a case of searching high and low for something, only to find it by chance. In this way, the ancestors' cultivation method can be considered complete. This seemingly unremarkable piece of black parchment was the remnant scroll of the Returnance Art. The Origin Returning Art that Xiao Yan cultivated was the first of the 3 volumes of the Origin Returning Art. In addition to the second volume that he had obtained from Tianju's inheritance and the other half that Xiao Yan had obtained from the auction in the western region, the last remaining part of the Origin Returning Art was now in Xiao Yan's hands. As long as this fragment returned to Xiao Xian's hands, the Origin Returning Art would be considered complete, and Xiao Xian's strength would be able to reach a higher level. After cultivating the Origin Returning Art, one's cultivation would definitely reach the advanced Source Venerate realm. Now, Xiao Yan had finally gathered all of it. Next, when he met Xiao Xian again in the future, he would hand over this fragment to him. This could be considered as settling a huge matter in his heart. Half a day later, the group set off from Nanlin City again and continued to head east. Nanlin City had completely lost all its experts after Xiao Yan's group left. In an instant, this large city, which was quite famous even in the extreme south, had become a delicious cake in the eyes of a countless number of people. Those Yuan kings, who had come to congratulate Nanlin City 2 days ago, led a large group of people and once again arrived. However, they were no longer respectful. Experts from all over the place gathered together and crazily fought for everything in the city. Within a short couple of days, the large city was occupied by various factions. At this moment, Xiao Yan's group had slowly arrived at a city to the east of the extreme south. Donghua City. Donghua City was an important city that connected the central region and the southern region. The teleportation formation set up in it led directly to the central region. It was an extremely important city hub at the border of the continent. Its founder was a huge force in the central region, but now Donghua City was under the management of the Yunin Pavilion. At this time, Xiao Yan and the others were standing outside Donghua City. Arriving here meant that they were only one teleportation formation away from the central region. Is this Donghua City? It's really amazing. Looking at the towering city in front of them, which was like a mountain range, Xiao Yan and the others could not help but have a strong sense of shock in their eyes. The size of the city was simply beyond their imagination. The towering city walls had a cold, steel-like luster, and various mysterious runes were carved on them. The faint aura emitted from them made them feel pressured. Even with Xiao Yan's strength, he could not help but feel a chill in his heart. Donghua City itself was a great formation. What a frightening formation. This large formation is likely much stronger than the Burning Flame Valley's sect protecting Great Formation. The group had a solemn expression as their gazes paused on the formation for a long time. Only then did they slowly walk into the city under the strange gazes of the surrounding people. When Xiao Yan and the others entered the city, the extravagant scene in front of them was even more shocking. On both sides of the street, various skyscrapers rose from the ground. The city was a glorious scene. In just a short while, Xiao Yan and the others saw more than a dozen experts at the Origin King level. There was even no lack of Origin Emperor experts. Origin Emperor experts who could dominate an area in the extreme south looked like ordinary people even here. The group did not stay for too long. After asking about the general location of the teleportation formation, they walked towards the center of Donghua City. However, just as they entered the city, an old man in a pavilion also noticed the existence of Xiao Yan and the others. He hesitated for a moment, then his figure moved and disappeared from the tower in the blink of an eye. After a short while, Xiao Yan and the others had already arrived at the center of Donghua City. Compared to other places, this place was undoubtedly more lively. Because of the teleportation formation, experts from all over the continent had gathered here. When Xiao Yan and the others arrived, they even discovered the existence of several Origin sect experts. This scene caused the group to be extremely shocked. It was also at this moment that an old man in a brocade robe suddenly blocked the path of Xiao Yan and the others. May I ask if this Mr. is Xiao Yan? Chapter 1305. An amiable laughter slowly sounded. The forward footsteps of Xiao Yan's group also paused. The few of them exchanged glances with each other. Immediately, their gazes once again returned to the old man in front of them. The old man had a head full of grayish-white hair. His face was rosy and plump. There was a tuft of beard on his chin. His somewhat shriveled hand was slowly stroking it. A pair of turbid old eyes were currently smiling as he stared at the group of people in front of him. This was especially the case when his gaze landed on Xiao Yan. The smile in his eyes became even denser. Seeing the old man in front of him like this, Xiao Yan also knew that the old man must know his identity. Otherwise, he would not have such an expression. Without much hesitation, he was secretly on guard. He carefully cupped his hands toward the old man in front of him and said, "I am Xiao Yan. May I know what is the matter?" Sensing the change in Xiao Yan's aura, the old man nodded with a kind smile and said, "Don't be nervous. Mister, there is no need to be nervous. No one in Donghua City can touch you, and I am no exception." As soon as the old man said this, Xiao Yan was stunned. However, before he could think about why, the old man in front of him continued to speak, "I am Zhongli. I am the manager of the Yunin Pavilion in Donghua City. It is my pavilion master who ordered me to wait for you here." Before he left, he repeatedly reminded me that if Mr. Xiao Yan comes here, I must treat you well. If anyone dares to make things difficult for you, no matter who it is, they will not appear in Donghua City in the future. Therefore, in Donghua City, Mr. Xiao Yan can rest assured. The old man laughed softly as he made an inviting gesture toward Xiao Yan. Only then did the latter come to a sudden understanding. No wonder this old man was able to recognize him at a glance. It was actually something done by Luo Jin. Moreover, from the words of Zhang Li earlier, it appeared that the strength of the hidden cloud pavilion in this area was much greater than he had imagined. Elder, you are too polite. Returning to his senses, Xiao Yan hurriedly cupped his hands towards the old man in front of him. Only then did he lead the few people behind him towards a certain place in the center of the city under Zhang Li's lead. Although Donghua City is nominally under the control of the Hidden Cloud Pavilion, it still belongs to the southern region. Other than managing some trivial matters, most of the resources and shops in the city still belong to the forces of the southern region. Don't underestimate them. On the surface, they seem to be shops opened by ordinary kings, but behind them, there are even more powerful forces supporting them, Yi Futian said. While the few of them were curiously observing the surrounding shops, Zhang Li's somewhat cautious voice was spat out. Hearing this, Xiao Yan nodded his head in understanding. Donghua City was one of the most important cities in the extreme south. How could an ordinary faction be able to establish a shop here and be able to live in such a stable manner? Senior, you're talking about the Origin Emperor, right? Xiao Yan smiled. Those who could set up a force here were naturally Origin Emperors. Mr. Xiao Yan, that's hard to say. The southern region is vast but sparsely populated. There are countless experts who have yet to appear. What you've seen is only the surface of the southern region. The expression in Xiao Yan's eyes immediately hardened when these words were uttered. He naturally understood the meaning behind the old man's words. This was just like the mysterious valley of the Qin wasteland back in the western region. On the surface, it was indeed the largest faction in the western region. However, the one who could truly be called the Dragon Head was the Murong clan located in the western region of the Western Wasteland, or the Blood Flame Bird tribe in the Fire Maple Forest in the extreme south. Until now, Xiao Yan had only seen the tribe head of the Blood Flame Bird tribe, Zhu Hao, and his son, Zhu Kan. The size of their entire tribe was naturally unimaginable. The continent was very large, and there were many hidden dragons and crouching tigers. This was also why one had to be careful when walking on the continent. There was no absolute power on this continent. A moment later, the group of people appeared in a pavilion. In the hall, after the few of them took their seats, Zhang Li walked in front of them, cupped his hands, and said slowly, "Senior brother Zhang Li, I'm sorry." He slowly said, "I wonder if you know anything about my Yunin Pavilion or the central region?" The few people seated shook their heads when these words were uttered. This was the first time that they had headed to the middle region of the continent. Who would know just what kind of scenery it was? As for the Hidden Cloud Pavilion, even Xiao Yan knew that it was a faction that belonged to the middle region. He did not know just where it came from. Zhang Li softly acknowledged when he saw everyone shake their heads. It was as if he was not surprised by this result. After which, he continued to speak. Before the pavilion chief left, he specially instructed the old me to inform everyone clearly if they were to come here. The middle region is different from the borders of the continent. The factions there are more complicated. At the same time, it is also more dangerous. Mr. Xiao Yan needs to pay attention to some of the stronger factions in the middle region. The division of the factions in the central region is different from other regions. Other than some powerful magical beast clans, the human factions are led by the Pill Tower, followed by the Tianyuan sect and the Ghost Gate. There are also the three great clans, the Shao clan, the Bai clan and the Ouyang clan. Finally, there are the other four great factions led by the Cloud Immortal sect. The Ghost Temple sect is also one of them. The Heavenly Cloud Villa, where my Cloud Immortal sect is located, is one of them. The other faction is called the Dewey sect. I believe that Mr. Xiao Yan will come into contact with them in the future. Zhang Li's gaze involuntarily landed on the little fairy doctor and Lian, when he finished speaking. With his eyesight, he was naturally able to see the difference between the two women. Xiao Yan's expression changed when he heard about the Shao clan. He did not expect the Shao clan to be one of the super factions in the central region. However, it was also because of this that Xiao Yan could not help but worry about Xiao Xian's current situation. The latter had yet to obtain the complete third scroll of the origin returning art, and his cultivation would definitely be affected. It was likely that he would not be able to avoid trouble in the Shao clan. A chilly glint flashed across Xiao Yan's eyes when he thought of this. It was fine if Xiao Xian was fine. However, if he were to head to the Shao clan and see Xiao Xian being treated coldly by others, it was fine if he did not want this so-called clan. As this thought flashed across his mind, Xiao Yan finally recovered. Zhang Li also opened his mouth once again. Although most of these factions hold their own, Mr. Xiao Yan should pay special attention to the Ghost Temple sect and the Cloud Celestial sect. On the surface, these two factions are indeed as famous as the Heavenly Cloud Villa and the Dewy sect. However, they are actually branches of the Heavenly Origin sect and the Ghost Gate. The two factions are wary of each other and have been in conflict for many years. They are scattered across the borders of the continent. It was only in recent years that the Ghost Temple sect gradually gathered its forces and withdrew from the borders of the continent. Although this is the case, Mr. Xiao Yan should be extremely careful if you encounter them in the future. Xiao Yan could not help but nod his head solemnly when he heard this. He naturally knew the reason why the Ghost Hall gathered its forces better than anyone else. However, he did not expect that the first thing he would face when he was about to step into the central region would be the Ghost Temple sect. As for the so-called Ghost Gate, it was likely that it was an even more terrifying existence. In addition, the pavilion master specially instructed before he left that if Mr. Xiao Yan encounters any trouble that he cannot resolve, he can come to the Heavenly Cloud Villa. The pavilion master will definitely do his best to help. Chapter 1306. In the pavilion, Xiao Yan and the rest stood up with smiles on their faces after listening to Zhang Li's kind explanation. They cupped their fists together towards the old man in front of them and respectfully said, "Thank you, elder." A smile involuntarily surfaced on Zhang Li's old face when he saw everyone's reaction. He gently lifted his hand and said with a faint smile, "Mr. Xiao Yan is too polite. This old man is merely following orders. All of this was instructed by the pavilion master. I am merely passing on the pavilion master's words. I only hope that Mr. Xiao Yan will be cautious after reaching the central region. The people there cannot be compared to the southern region." Zhang Li's tone carried a hint of caution towards the end of his words. He had naturally heard of Xiao Yan's actions in the extreme south. Based on Xiao Yan's character, he would inevitably attract trouble once he reached the central region. This junior will remember elder's kind reminder in his heart. However, there are times when trouble does not necessarily come from oneself. If anyone thinks that my friends and I are easy to bully, I will definitely use my fists to tell them that we are not persimmons. Xiao Yan smiled indifferently. A cold glint flashed across his pitch-black eyes. His words were clearly referring to the Ghost Temple sect. Even if Xiao Yan truly wanted to avoid that group of people who were neither human nor ghost, it was likely that it would be difficult for him to do so. The Ghost Temple sect would definitely take action against him during this trip to the central region. At that time, not only him, but even his friends would inevitably encounter trouble because of this. The best way to deal with this was to use violence to curb violence. He would use a sufficiently powerful force to kill and expel all the intruders. When Zhang Li saw the cold murderous intent that flashed across Xiao Yan's face, he involuntarily opened his mouth. However, he remained silent in the end. He nodded his head and said, "In that case, this old man wishes everyone a smooth journey in advance. We will meet again in the future. See you again in the future." Everyone cupped their fists in unison. Then, under Zhang Li's lead, they once again came to the center of Donghua City. The human flow on the spacious open ground was like a flood. At this moment, a dazzling golden glow was being emitted from between over 10 stone pillars on an enormous tall platform. Following the extreme flickering of the glow, a group of human figures appeared on the stone platform a short moment later. The gazes of quite a number of people present also followed and looked over. At this moment, Xiao Yan's gaze had noticed the stone pillars around the stone platform. Compared to the transportation formations he had seen in the past, the one in front of him seemed to be different. Sensing Xiao Yan's gaze, Zhongli faintly smiled. He gently stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Mr. Xiao Yan, do you think there's something wrong with this teleportation portal?" Hearing this, Xiao Yan's expression was first stunned, and then he recovered. He smiled embarrassedly and said a little awkwardly, "Although I have seen many teleportation portals before, it seems that this teleportation portal is different in both size and structure." Mr. Xiao Yan's observation is very detailed. Compared to the teleportation portals in the southern, western and northern regions, this teleportation portal is indeed different. Mr. Xiao Yan may not know, but the construction of a teleportation portal itself is not fixed. The reason why the teleportation portals that are commonly seen are all rank 5 is because the formation of a teleportation portal itself requires a large amount of spiritual energy as the foundation. Only when one's spiritual energy reaches rank 5 can it be formed. Xiao Yan involuntarily nodded when he spoke until this point. He had also heard of this point. The agglomeration of a teleportation formation required a great amount of spiritual strength as the price. No one below the rank 5 formation master level was able to successfully agglomerate it. But other than that, there are rank 6 and even rank 7 teleportation portals above rank 5. The teleportation portal in Donghua City is rank 6. Compared to a rank 5 teleportation portal, a rank 6 teleportation portal consumes more energy, but at the same time, the teleportation distance and speed will be greatly increased. It is precisely because the distance between the central and southern regions is so great that only a rank 6 teleportation portal can achieve such an effect. Of course, other than the regional teleportation array, there are also some short-distance teleportation arrays. There is no need to set up a formation array. As long as you borrow the power of the formation plate, you will be able to perform short-distance teleportation arrays. However, the disadvantage of those teleportation arrays is that they are aimless. However, for some people who are fleeing, it is not a bad choice. In short, different formations have different effects. Although there are many alchemists on this continent, formation masters are not to be trifled with. Unfortunately, there are too many forces that have neglected the existence of formation masters. Many alchemists have neglected the existence of formation masters. As he spoke, Zhang Li's eyes involuntarily swept over Xiao Yan. He was naturally aware that the black-robed, young man in front of him was also an alchemist. It was also because of this that there was an additional emotion at the end of his words. Due to the existence of the Pill Tower, all the experts on this continent believed that alchemists were the best. However, because of this, they had neglected the equally powerful formation masters. It must be said that this was a kind of tragedy. Xiao Yan came to a sudden understanding in his heart after hearing Zhang Li's words. He did not have much understanding of formations. In the past, he had underestimated the strength of a formation master. Now that he thought about it, a formation master did have its own unique points. If it could flourish in the future, it was likely that it would become one of the most popular professions on the Yuanwu continent. After a simple exchange of pleasantries, the group moved towards the tall platform in front of them. Zhang Li looked at the backs of the group in front of him and could not help but have a vague guess in his heart. It was likely that the middle region would stir up a storm because of this group of people in the future. The group slowly stepped onto the tall platform and entered the formation. Outside, there was an old man in golden robes controlling the formation. After everyone stepped into the formation, the old man once again changed his familiar seal. Following the rapid change of the seal in the old man's hand, the formation under everyone's feet and the surrounding stone pillars also emitted a wave of golden light. When the golden light enveloped everyone within the formation like the light of the scorching sun, everyone's vision also became blurry. Hum hum hum, a wave of golden light once again flashed on the large square. Everyone present glanced indifferently at it. Soon after, a group of figures appeared within the formation in the middle of the square. After the golden light faded, Xiao Yan's group's vision gradually recovered. They carefully observed their surroundings. Their eyes were filled with surprise and curiosity. So, this is the Central Region. Chapter 1307. The ancient Orchid City was a small city located in the southwest of the Central Region. Although this place was not under the control of any faction, due to the existence of a transportation array, the ancient Orchid City had become the most popular city in this area. Just the daily flow of customers was comparable to some of the big cities in the central region. One could imagine how prosperous the city was. At this very moment, in the middle of the ancient Orchid City, Xiao Yan and the others revealed curious expressions as they sized up their surroundings. A long while later, they finally walked toward a street under the disdainful gazes of the people around them. The passers-by on both sides of the street looked at the few curious young people with mocking expressions on their faces. The gazes they used to look at them were as though they were looking at a group of country bumpkins. Although they had seen quite a number of young people who had just arrived, there would always be people who would mock and ridicule them. In fact, there would also be quite a few people who would find trouble with them. I say, little brats, is this your first time in the central region? Just as Xiao Yan and the rest were slowly walking towards the street, a few tall middle-aged burly men walked over from the side. These men had already noticed the presence of Xiao Yan and the rest the moment they appeared. Based on their many years of experience, they could naturally tell that this was the first time these youths had come to the central region. When the powerful cry from the strong man's mouth sounded, some of the people around who were more familiar with him immediately turned their gazes to Xiao Yan's group. Their gazes immediately swept between the two of them. When they saw the frail bodies of Xiao Yan's group, they could not help but shake their heads in pity. These few strong men may not be considered big shots, but they could be considered to have few opponents within the ancient Orchid City. Usually, they would specially deal with some newcomers who had just arrived and snatch benefits from their hands. This was especially the case for young people like Xiao Yan's group. Once they were targeted by them, it was likely that it would be very difficult for them to leave the ancient Orchid City peacefully without paying a price. When the burly men saw Xiao Yan and the rest stop in front of them, a mocking expression involuntarily flashed across their eyes. Subsequently, a smug smile appeared on the corners of their mouths as they took a step forward, appearing even more arrogant and willful. Is something the matter? The expressions of Xiao Yan's group did not change when they sensed the gazes of these few strong men that contained ill intent being shot over. At the same time as they turned around, an indifferent voice was also softly spat out from Xiao Yan's mouth. When they saw the manner of Xiao Yan's group, the expressions on the burly men's faces were involuntarily stunned. Soon after, it turned into a cold smile. It was not as though they had never seen such arrogant newcomers in the past. Unfortunately, this kind of person did not have a good time in their hands. I say, kid, this is the central region, not the hometown of country bumpkins like you. Since you've come to my ancient Orchid City, you have to follow the rules here. Since you're new here, each person will have to pay 500 spirit stones as a toll. The leader of the few burly men walked up to Xiao Yan's group with his head held high. With a cold expression, he looked at the thin body of Xiao Yan in front of him and spoke in a rather rude and unreasonable tone. Hearing this, Xiao Yan's eyelids drooped slightly as the expression on his face gradually turned indifferent. His gaze swept across the surrounding crowd. Among them, there were quite a number of people who came here with them. Moreover, those people's cultivations were generally above King Yuan. Moreover, all of them had fierce expressions. At a glance, one could tell that they were the kind of people who were ruthless. Soon after, Xiao Yan's gaze once again returned to the burly man in front of him as he slowly said, "All right, then please collect their toll first." While saying this, Xiao Yan's gaze swept over once again. The burly man in front of him could not help but be startled by this. His gaze swept the surroundings as he coldly snorted and said, "Kid, among these people, only you guys are new here. You should, is it because you're so familiar with their faces, or is it because of their strength?" Before the words from the burly man's mouth sounded, Xiao Yan interrupted him with a single sentence. At the same time that his ice-cold gaze landed on the burly man's body, a frightening aura that caused the expressions of most people present to change abruptly spread out from within Xiao Yan's body. The powerful pressure actually suppressed the few burly men in front of him until they knelt on the ground. The burly men, who were originally much taller than Xiao Yan, could only uncontrollably submit at this moment. Origin King? Soon after, cries of disbelief rang out in the square. Countless gazes of shock also landed on Xiao Yan's body. It was not that they had never seen an origin king before, but such a young origin king was similarly in existence that was as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns even in the central region. From what they knew, such a young origin king expert could only be nurtured by those peak factions in the central region. Could it be that the young man before them was a young disciple of one of those factions? Only when they thought of this did the people present let out a sigh of relief. If that was the case, it would still make sense. If the group of people before them really came from the borders of the continent, the cultivation talent of this young man was a little too terrifying. Now, do you still want spiritual stones? Ignoring the shocked gazes in the surroundings, Xiao Yan looked indifferently at the middle-aged man who was half kneeling on the ground in front of him and slowly spoke. When the latter heard this, his heart was filled with bitterness. Soon after, he hurriedly and respectfully apologized. If one often walked by the river, how could one's shoes not get wet? Today, his group had finally met with an iron plate. In the past, their methods had never failed, but this time, they just had to meet Xiao Yan's group. This could be considered as a wake-up call for them. If he really was a disciple of some large faction, these fellows might not necessarily still be alive and kneeling here. After dealing with the trouble before them, Xiao Yan's group did not pay any more attention to them and slowly walked in the direction they had chosen earlier. Afterwards, the crowd of onlookers gradually dispersed. At the same time, on a certain tall building in the city, two figures, one old and one young, were looking in the direction Xiao Yan's group had left. In particular, when their gazes landed on Lian, greed could not help but appear in the depths of their eyes. It has been many years since we last met. That child has grown up. The old man looked at the pretty Lian, and could not help but lick his lips. Now, he was completely sure that Lian, was the child they had lost back then. Third elder, now you should believe what I said. As long as we join forces to bring the holy maiden back to the sect, you will definitely be rewarded greatly, and don't worry. As long as you bring the holy maiden back, I will definitely stand on your side. Naturally, your marriage with Qianqian will not be a problem. When the young man spoke, the old man also laughed faintly. Hearing this, the young man's face immediately revealed a joyful smile. He hurriedly bowed respectfully to the old man in front of him. As the old man smiled and waved his hand, he did not notice that when the young man lowered his head, an extremely obscure sinister light flashed in the depths of his eyes. Chapter 1308. Outside of ancient Orchid City, Xiao Yan was currently holding a map in his hand. The map detailed the distribution of the various large regions in the middle region, as well as the locations of some cities and superfactions. Among them, the location of the Xiao clan was also marked in detail. Additionally, Xiao Yan also noticed that the nearest faction to them was the Du Ai sect. The Heavenly Cloud Villa was located in the north, while the Cloud Immortals sect was located in the southeast. Among the four great factions, only the Ghost Temple sect was not marked on the map. Putting these aside, based on the location of the Xiao clan on the map, it was obvious that Xiao Yan would have to go through quite a long journey in order to reach it. The Yuanwu continent was very large, and the middle region included countless clans and factions. Although these so-called super factions were able to hold their own in this place, it did not mean that the middle region belonged to them. This might seem like an extremely short distance on the map, but if they really had to travel, it was likely that even with Xiao Yan's current cultivation, it would take at least a month to reach the Xiao clan. Moreover, the little fairy doctor and the rest were following him. The group had just arrived and naturally had nowhere to go. Putting aside the fact that the little fairy doctor and Bai Hua would follow Xiao Yan, Li Bingrui would also not easily let him off. As for Lian, she would naturally follow the four of them. Now that Xiao Yan was rushing to the Xiao clan, they naturally had to follow him. Let's go to the Xiao clan. Xiao Yan took the lead after greeting the few of them. His toes gently pressed on the ground, and his body rushed into the air in the blink of an eye. Behind him, the little fairy doctor and the rest quickly followed. The group flew in the direction of the Xiao clan on the map. Not long after the group left, two human figures swiftly flew out from ancient Orchid City. They looked in the direction that Xiao Yan's group had left in and laughed coldly. After which, they turned into two black figures and quickly chased after them. According to the markings on the map, the Shao clan was located in Shao City. The Shao clan's faction was located in the surrounding thousands of miles. Further out were some smaller clans and sections. Although these factions did not seem worth mentioning on the map, they were undoubtedly much stronger than Xiao Yan's group. The middle region is really filled with hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Ancestor Fantion's origin sect is already considered the strongest in the southern region. However, in the middle region, it is at most an ordinary third-tier faction. Origin sect experts are only below average here. In that case, wouldn't the sect leaders of these super factions be at least origin venerables? Tisk tsk. Origin venerables. Just the cultivation of a origin sect expert is already so terrifying. If they are origin venerables. The little fairy doctor and the rest involuntarily smacked their lips when these words reached this point. They did not dare to easily imagine the strength of an origin venerate expert. At the front, Xiao Yan smiled indifferently. Although the origin venerate stage was still very far away from them, this group was still much younger than those experts. Regardless of whether it was their cultivation talent or character, they would not be lacking. He believed that as long as they were given enough time, it would not be difficult for them to become origin venerables. However, just as this group of people was swiftly flying toward the eastern sky, Xiao Yan, who had a calm expression, suddenly frowned. An obscure glint swiftly flashed deep within his eyes. At the same time, his gaze swiftly collided with Bai Hua by his side. The latter had sensed the caution in Xiao Yan's eyes in the blink of an eye. "What is it?" The little fairy doctor frowned and asked in a puzzled voice when she saw Xiao Yan and Bai Hua suddenly become quiet. "Be careful, there might be trouble." While speaking, a thought passed through Xiao Yan's mind and the vigorous Genesis Qi in the vortex in his body immediately began to circulate. Boundless energy swiftly flowed through the Qi paths in his body like waves as a purple flame gradually rose in his pitch-black eyes. The group of people who were flying forward came to a halt. Numerous vigilant gazes looked in the direction they came from. At the end of their line of sight, two blurry black dots were rapidly approaching. In just a few breaths, two figures, one old and one young, had already appeared in their line of sight. The group frowned when they saw the two unfamiliar figures from afar. They had just arrived in the central region and had yet to provoke any faction. If they had to target someone, it would be the few origin kings from before. However, Xiao Yan had not killed them, so what was the point of this? "The two of you seem to have followed us for a long time. May I know what you need from us?" Xiao Yan frowned and walked towards the group. He cupped his hands together towards the two figures nearby and said in a low voice. The old man and the young man slowly approached Xiao Yan's group when they heard this. The old man's dark old eyes swept over Lian air. After which, they landed on the little fairy doctor. A glint involuntarily flashed deep within his old eyes. With his eyesight, he was naturally able to tell that these two girls possessed the woeful poison body. Immediately, he involuntarily rejoiced in his heart. Bringing back a holy maiden would allow him to obtain great benefits. However, if he were to bring back two people with the woeful poison body, it would undoubtedly be an even greater contribution. At this moment, an endless killing intent surged into Su Zhen's eyes the moment he saw Xiao Yan. The various things that had happened in the past were still vivid in his mind. Since Xiao Yan had appeared in front of him today, he would naturally seek revenge for all the enmity from the past. If it were not for the sake of the overall situation, it was likely that the current him would have already been unable to resist charging forward to fight with Xiao Yan. Haha, it can't be considered teaching. I'm here to ask for someone. The old man gently stroked his beard. His gaze paused on Xiao Yan with some surprise. Such a young origin emperor was indeed rare, especially one who had come from the borders of the continent. This was even more surprising. However, an origin emperor was ultimately an origin emperor. In the eyes of the origin sect experts, there was still too much of a difference. Ask for someone? Xiao Yan's expression changed slightly when he heard this. Surprise surfaced in his eyes. This was the first time they had met the two people in front of them. Why would they ask for someone? The little girl behind you is the holy maiden of my Dewey sect, who has been missing for many years. I'm here to bring her back. Xiao Yan's expression immediately turned gloomy when he heard this. It really was what he wanted. Now that he was in the central region, he was afraid that he would encounter the people from the Dewey sect. However, he did not expect to encounter the people from the Dewey sect right after he left the ancient Orchid City. This was not a good thing. Since they had recognized Lian's special constitution, Xiao Yan understood that regardless of whether the girl was the holy maiden that the old man spoke of, the old man would bring her back today. However, this was not something that Xiao Yan wanted to see. Xiao Xian had already been brought back to that unknown clan. How could he hand Lian over to a faction that he did not know about and did not even have a good impression of? Therefore, today was probably Wonderful Bookstore. Chapter 1309. Of course, if you are still worried or are willing, you can join my Dewey sect. I can guarantee that given your talent, you will definitely become a core disciple if you join my Dewey sect. Your future achievements will be limitless, and you may even be able to take on great responsibilities in my Dewey sect, becoming, my apologies, I have no interest in joining your esteemed sect. As for the girl, she is my friend's disciple, and I cannot hand her over to you. Therefore, I will have to ask old Mr. to return. Before the old man could finish his sentence, Xiao Yan shook his head, firmly rejecting the other party's wishes. The expression on Su Zhen's face involuntarily changed when he heard the words of the old man beside him. He did not expect that this old man, who would not die, would cherish Xiao Yan's talent and want to recruit him to the Dewey sect. If Xiao Yan really succeeded, it would not be good for his revenge or even his other plans. Fortunately, Xiao Yan's reply caused him to be quite satisfied. Only in this way did he have a reason to urge this fellow beside him to attack and kill Xiao Yan. Third elder, this brat dares to speak to you in such a manner and even underestimate my Dewey sect. We must teach him a lesson. Although the old man knew that Su Zhen was merely adding fuel to the fire, this was Xiao Yan's attitude. What's more, there were two woeful poisoned bodies placed in front of him. Since Xiao Yan was unwilling to hand over the girl no matter what, the old man naturally had no choice but to personally take action. Kid, this old man cherishes talent, so I don't want to fight with you. However, that little girl is my sect's holy maiden. No matter what, this old man must bring her back today. If you continue to be stubborn, then don't blame this old man for taking action. As the somewhat hoarse voice was spat out from the old man's mouth, a powerful aura and pressure suddenly swept out from the old man's body. The frightening aura caused the expression on Xiao Yan's face to instantly change. At the same time, the little fairy doctor and the rest hurriedly adjusted the Genesis Chi in their bodies. For Star Origin Sect, Xiao Yan's expression changed as he sensed the powerful aura that spread from the old man's body. At the same time, he involuntarily let out a quiet cry in his heart. This kind of cultivation was even a little stronger than ancestor Fen Tian. Buzz. Immediately after, Su Zhen's body trembled slightly as another powerful aura swept out. At this moment, his aura had already reached the level of a 3-star origin emperor. Of course, this was under the premise that he was concealing his true strength. Otherwise, if the old man beside him knew that Su Zhen's cultivation had already reached that of a 6-star origin emperor, he would probably be shocked. An origin ancestor and an origin emperor. Such a lineup was already considered terrifying for Xiao Yan's current group. Fortunately, the other experts from the Crossing Adversity sect had yet to arrive. Otherwise, once they gathered even more experts, it would truly be difficult for them to escape. Brat, I'll give you one more chance. Either hand over the Saintess or leave with me. Otherwise, don't blame me for taking action. The old man stared at Xiao Yan with a cold expression. Xiao Yan was merely an initial origin emperor. Such a cultivation was far from enough in front of him. Once he personally attacked, it was likely that this group of people would not even have the chance to retaliate. I'm sorry, we don't have the Saintess you want here, and we won't leave with you. So, please. At the same time that the cry was spat out from Xiao Yan's mouth, his body suddenly shook. A purple-colored, heavenly flame immediately spat out from the pores all over his body. In the blink of an eye, it covered his entire body. At the same time, the temperature of this place suddenly rose. The originally warm and moist air immediately became dry and hot. Even the mountain forest below was similarly affected. This is a heavenly fire? The old man's pupils abruptly shrank at the sight of the purple flames on Xiao Yan's body. Surprise involuntarily appeared on his face. Heavenly fires had long since gained sentience, but he never imagined that there would be a human who could control a heavenly fire. This was truly unheard of. Brat, I'm suddenly curious about you. To think that you can control a heavenly fire. No wonder you've reached the Origin Emperor stage at such a young age. However, I'll still say the same thing. If you don't intend to hand over the Saintess, I'll have no choice but to kill you here. I'll personally bring the Saintess back. As he spoke, the old man's withered hand gradually lifted as black Genesis chi slowly condensed in his palm. Soon after, it condensed into a black blade that was curved like a crescent moon. The blade did not have a hilt, and the 3 fingers wide blade was clamped between the old man's 5 fingers. The sharp blade gave off a chilling aura that sent chills down one's spine. Brat, remember my name, Tang Long. As his low voice rang out, the old man's hand trembled slightly. The ink-colored blade shot out in the blink of an eye, slicing through space. With a few twists, it arrived in front of Xiao Yan, its chilling blade heading straight for the spot between Xiao Yan's brows. If the blade landed, Xiao Yan would undoubtedly die. Dragon Phoenix Ancient Armor, Golden Elephant Art, Heavenly Fire Armor, Condense. Xiao Yan let out an explosive cry in his heart. On his body, 3 layers of protection were agglomerated and formed in the blink of an eye. The fierce purple-colored flame was so agglomerated that it appeared to be a substance. As the purple-colored flame flowed, it was as viscous as a liquid. However, that frightening temperature still caused people to be frightened. If Xiao Yan had relied on his sky extinction steps, he would have been able to easily dodge this attack. However, the little fairy doctor and the others were standing behind him. In order to prevent them from being injured, Xiao Yan could only rely on his brute force to forcefully receive this attack. Tang Long could not help but sneer when he saw the heavenly fire armor that seemed to have solidified on Xiao Yan's body. Brat, I know that a heavenly fire is extraordinary, but if you think that you can block my black moon blade with just this, you're too naive. In the next moment, the strange, black-colored curved blade in the sky violently smashed into Xiao Yan's body under his 3 layers of defense. Bang! The moment the curved blade made contact with the heavenly flame armor, the rotating body of the curved blade paused for a moment. Soon after, it began to rotate wildly. The black-colored glow continued to appear. Looking from the side, it appeared like a black-colored full moon. The sharpness on it also repeatedly struck Xiao Yan's heavenly flame armor. Over 10 seconds later, one could hear a bang sound. Xiao Yan's heavenly flame armor was actually forcefully broken apart by the curved blade. Even Xiao Yan's body was forced back a couple of steps. Giant elephant art. Break. Another low cry sounded. Xiao Yan's body suddenly shook. A ferocious force immediately poured out like a flood erupting from a mountain. At the same time, a piercingly cold golden light was emitted from Xiao Yan's body. A frightening force actually sent the curved blade flying. At the same time, a slight cracking sound was emitted from Xiao Yan's golden body. Although Xiao Yan had relied on the heavenly flame armor and the giant elephant skill to successfully block the old man's attack, the giant elephant skill had also reached the edge of breaking. The strength of this old man was much more frightening than Xiao Yan had imagined. If he wanted to quickly escape from these 2 people, it was likely that he could no longer be as slow as when he was dealing with Buddha Hao. Chapter 13:10. Huh. Seeing that his scimitar was actually forcefully sent flying by Xiao Yan while the latter appeared to be completely uninjured, Tang Long's sunken old eyes involuntarily revealed a shocked expression. Boy, I can't believe you managed to block my Black Moon Scimitar with your initial origin Emperor cultivation. You really surprised me. As Tang Long spat out these words, an icy look emerged on his old face. Genesis Chi rapidly circulated in his meridians and gushed out. Surging power surged and gathered in the surrounding void, and the deadly poison contained in the Genesis Chi caused the void to tremble. Usually, the Du AI sect's method of dealing with people who could not become friends with them was to kill them. This was especially the case for someone like Xiao Yan, whose training talent was extremely great, but who just so happened to affect the Du AI sect's benefits. Since they could not make use of Xiao Yan was destined to become their enemy in the future. Xiao Yan's expression didn't change in the slightest. The Genesis Chi in the vortex in his body rapidly circulated, and a powerful mysterious flame frantically gathered in the palm of his right hand. Terrifying power that contained the aura of reincarnation slowly gathered in his palm. Xiao Yan was well aware of the strength of this fellow in front of him. If he were to fight head-on, it was likely that he would not gain the slightest advantage. Moreover, since they were able to block them here, it was likely that there would be experts from the Du AI sect nearby. If they were to drag this out, it would not benefit their group at all. Hence, the angry Buddha reincarnation was his greatest hope. As long as he could force Tang Long back, Su Zhen beside him would naturally no longer pose a threat. Oh. Tang Long's old face once again changed when he sensed the aura that had gathered on Xiao Yan's right hand. There was even some disbelief in his eyes. An initial origin Emperor brat was actually able to agglomerate such a frightening strength? Boy, stop. A low cry sounded and Tang Long's body, which was suspended in the air, suddenly disappeared. At the same time, Xiao Yan's expression suddenly changed. The absolute sky steps under his feet were unleashed. His body immediately dodged to the side without any hesitation. The empty space in front of him, which was still calm a moment ago, suddenly became distorted in the next second. A shriveled hand was suddenly extended. 5 fingers were curled into a claw that reached for Xiao Yan's face. However, the claw brushed past Xiao Yan's face the moment it attacked. So fast. Tang Long's heart shook. He didn't expect a mere origin emperor to possess speed comparable to an origin sect expert. Xiao Yan's right cheek involuntarily twitched at the same time his body paused. Due to the old man's special Genesis Chi, a purple-colored wound that was tainted by poison was left on one side of his face. Soon after, the heavenly flame surged. Only then did it remove all the poison with a slight sizzling sound. At the same time, the speed at which Xiao Yan gathered strength in his palm also abruptly increased. Boy, it seems that I've underestimated you. Ordinary origin emperors can't compare to the fact that you possess a heavenly fire. With a stern shout, Tang Long's body flashed forward again. With a wave of his sleeve, a large expanse of poisonous mist immediately swept outwards, pouncing towards Xiao Yan from all directions. As the latter dodged, he opened his mouth and spat out a ferocious flame, transforming into a giant fire net that charged into the black poisonous mist. A series of sizzling noises rang out as a large expanse of black smoke rose. The poisonous mist rapidly thinned under the obstruction of the heavenly fire. At this moment, Tang Long's body flashed and arrived beside Xiao Yan. He waved his large hand and the space around Xiao Yan immediately became distorted. Numerous black curtains that contained poison swiftly agglomerated and formed. Boy, let's see where you can run to. The strength of the great Tao surged and Xiao Yan's 4 paths of escape were immediately blocked. Tang Long clenched his 5 fingers and a black-colored poison gas swiftly agglomerated in his hand. It once again transformed into a curved blade. With a swing of his hand, the curved blade shot explosively toward Xiao Yan. At the same time, Tang Long's body also charged forward. Under this double pressure, even with Xiao Yan's agility, it was impossible for him to dodge Tang Long's attack. When trouble arrived, Xiao Yan also hurriedly used the great path of the void. As the black curtains condensed behind him, several steel needles appeared in his left hand. With a flick of his wrist, the steel needles flew out, and his body sank into the great path tent while lying on his back. Asterisk clang clang clang, following several crisp collisions, sparks flew and the curved blade was blocked. Tang Long appeared in front of Xiao Yan. The moment the latter's body sank into the Great Path tent, Tang Long's 5 fingers clawed and left 5 burning bloody marks on Xiao Yan's chest. Pft. On the other side, while Xiao Yan narrowly dodged Tang Long's attack, he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Compared to Tang Long, even with the protection of the Great Path of the Void, it was still difficult for him to match up. Tang Long's strength had far exceeded his expectations. If he fought alone without using any of his trump cards, he would definitely not be this old man's match. Damn it. It's actually the Great Path of the Void. Boy, you're much more dangerous than this old man imagined. Xiao Yan had continuously dodged his attacks, and even the power of the Great Path of the Void had not been able to successfully stop him. This made Tang Long's expression turn gloomy. As a dignified Origin sect expert, dealing with an early Origin Emperor brat was completely easy. However, today, Xiao Yan had repeatedly made him suffer. If news of this spread, how could he, Tang Long, still have the face to continue living in the central region? Cough cough, the same goes for you. You are indeed worthy of being a Genesis sect expert, and your cultivation is indeed frightening. However, I am unable to do the same for Senior, who is willing to throw away his face to deal with a junior like me. Xiao Yan coughed a few times when he heard this. He could not help but grin as he felt the sweet taste of blood in his mouth, revealing a callous smile. The muscles at the corner of Tang Long's eyes twitched violently when he heard this. The fury in his heart burned even more fiercely. Sharp-tongued brat, you will pay the price for your words and actions. Tang Long's expression became increasingly ugly as he watched the terrifying aura gradually condense in Xiao Yan's palm. As his words rang out, Tang Long's figure instantly appeared near Xiao Yan like a ghost. His face wore a sinister smile as he eerily smiled at Xiao Yan. Soon after, his 5 fingers mercilessly grabbed at Xiao Yan's throat like a ghost's claw. Judging from the force behind his attack, Xiao Yan's throat would be directly pierced if he was hit. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 1311. The ghost claw, which contained a dark black poison gas, was swiftly magnified in Xiao Yan's eyes. The expressions of the little fairy doctors group a short distance away had also become grave at this moment. Once an expert from a 4-star source zone truly attacked, it was no laughing matter. Xiao Yan's expression did not change much at this moment. The purple flame in his eyes surged as the great Tao tent was once again formed in front of him. At the same time, the fire will in his palm was swiftly gathering energy. Its aura had also become increasingly frightening. As long as he waited a little longer, the angry Buddha reincarnation would be completely formed. Even if this old man was a 4-star source zone, he would not be able to easily receive it. The dark black ghost claw quickly followed after Xiao Yan once again stabilized his body. While Xiao Yan's body dodged to the left and right, it still left behind a bloody scar on Xiao Yan's ribs. The dark black poison gas was just about to spread when it was quickly incinerated by the purple flame that filled Xiao Yan's body. The chase between the two was close and swift. On the other side, Suzhen watched the crazy fight between the two in the arena. A vicious expression gradually surfaced in his eyes. Xiao Yan's strength had far exceeded his expectations. If Tang Long was not present today, it was likely that he would have difficulty finishing off Xiao Yan alone. Moreover, based on the situation in front of him, even with Tang Long's strength, he might not be able to control Xiao Yan in front of Xiao Yan, who possessed the Void Way. The murderous intent in Suzhen's heart grew even denser when he thought of this. His body stood in the air without moving. Threads of Genesis chi quietly gathered in his palm under his sleeves. His eyes, which contained killing intent, stared intently at Xiao Yan, who was paying full attention to Tang Long. The corner of his mouth was slowly lifted into a cold smile. Thud. With a muffled sound, Tang Long's palm slammed into Xiao Yan's shoulder. Although the latter had the Heaven Annihilation steps, it was unavoidable for him to be injured by the 4-star Genesis sect expert Tang Long. Powerful power burst out from Tang Long's palm, instantly causing half of Xiao Yan's body to lose all feeling. The Buddha's fury samsara in his right hand nearly dissipated as a result. Tang Long's figure followed closely behind, his sharp ghostly claw shooting over like lightning. Just as it was about to strike Xiao Yan's throat, the latter's body abruptly shifted backwards, the great Tao of void flashing around his body as he switched to the heaven annihilation steps. All that was left was a blurry afterimage as his body mysteriously vanished. Tang Long's claws mercilessly tore the afterimage in front of him to shreds. As he let out a cold snort, poison shot out from his palm, blasting the afterimage into nothingness. Tang Long turned around, his chilling gaze as he looked towards a certain spot in the sky and icily said voice. "Brat, do you only know how to run? Ha, old Mister's cultivation far surpasses this junior's. If not, I would have long since died at your hands. However, since old Mister does not wish for me to continue hiding, I will fulfill old Mister's request." The pale-faced Xiao Yan slowly turned around. The corner of his mouth was lifted into a cold smile. Immediately, he slowly lifted his right hand. A gorgeous purple-colored fire wheel whizzed and rotated in his palm. A dark black light spot within it was as deep as a black hole. At the same time that the light spot slowly distorted and changed, a frightening aura that was filled with a destructive feeling quietly spread out from it. Is this a great Tao technique? But how is it possible for it to possess such a frightening energy? Even with Tang Long's temperament, the expression on his old face involuntarily became ugly when he sensed the frightening aura that spread from the fire wheel. He could sense a dense threatening aura from the fire wheel. Tang Long did not doubt that if this thing landed on his body, he would definitely have difficulty escaping death. However, was such a frightening Dou technique really something an initial stage origin Emperor Brat could do? Even though he was extremely unwilling in his heart, the truth was already placed in front of him. Xiao Yan's angry Buddha reincarnation had already been formed. Once it erupted, what he needed to consider was no longer how to kill Xiao Yan but how to protect himself. Angry Buddha reincarnation, go. Xiao Yan's emotionless eyes looked at Tang Long. The corner of his blood-stained mouth lifted slightly. The expression in his eyes was unusually indifferent and cold. As those words were slowly emitted from his mouth, Xiao Yan's hand trembled gently. The purple fire wheel suddenly began to rotate wildly in his palm. The thumb-sized strange black spot within it also began to tremble intensely at this moment. The instant the space around Xiao Yan exploded, a huge black light pillar suddenly shot out from the fire wheel in his palm. It expanded with the wind and in the blink of an eye, it had transformed into a shocking light pillar that was dozens of feet thick. It appeared as though it wanted to pierce through the sky as it suddenly shot towards Tang Long. Damn it! At this moment, Tang Long could not help but become increasingly furious. How could he have imagined that Xiao Yan, who was merely an initial origin Emperor Brat, would actually make him feel such great pressure that it even threatened his life? Brat, you are the first person in so many years that I have treated you like this. Tang Long did not dare to hesitate any longer as his expression changed. He deeply inhaled a breath of air and held it in his chest. Soon after, his old face rapidly turned purplish black. This state only lasted for an instant before waves of hissing sounds were heard. Countless strange purplish-black poisonous gases burst out from the countless pores on the surface of his body in all directions. Moreover, the strange poisonous gases seemed to be mixed with traces of scarlet blood, causing the poisonous gases to become even more strange and sinister. Blood cloud poison sky. An invisible cry was emitted from Tang Long's mouth in a hoarse voice. After this cry sounded, the strange blood-colored poisonous gases that lingered around his body also swiftly swelled. In the blink of an eye, they transformed into a blood-colored poisonous cloud that was 1,000 feet in size. Tang Long's body was completely wrapped by this poisonous cloud. The moment this poisonous cloud appeared, the empty space where Tang Long was immediately distorted. Numerous enormous cracks appeared in the empty space. Even the area where the few of them were located became dark at this moment. A thin layer of black fog quietly spread in the air. The originally calm mountain forest below also became distorted and melted. Finally, it transformed into a sludge that contained a strange poisonous gas. The little fairy doctor also immediately discovered this point in the empty space. She hurriedly waved her sleeves. An invisible aura spread and scattered the poisonous gases that were about to approach them. At the same time, the collision between Xiao Yan and Tang Long had also completely begun. Chapter 13:12. While the strange blood-colored poison cloud was being formed in the sky, the enormous black-colored energy light pillar that cut through the sky also arrived. Following the swift approach of the black-colored light pillar, the blood-colored poison cloud also began to fluctuate intensely. Threads of dense white fog rose from within it. After which, it was swallowed by the strange suction force that surged from the black-colored light pillar. The fluctuation in the air also became increasingly intense as the two became increasingly closer. The originally calm empty space seemed to have formed an enormous spatial wave at this moment, as though a meteorite had smashed into the surface of a lake. The entire place began to fluctuate intensely because of this. The little fairy doctor's group and Su Zhen's expressions were especially grave as they watched the scene in the sky. They widened their eyes in disbelief as they watched the shocking light pillar that cut through the sky and suddenly collide with the poison cloud in the sky. Chi! The black-colored light pillar was accompanied by a slight, chi-chi sound when it entered the poison cloud. After which, it quietly charged into the depths of the poison cloud that permeated the entire sky. However, the earth-shaking explosion that everyone had imagined did not appear after that. The strange black-colored poison cloud had descended into a strange calmness at this moment. The angry Buddha lotus flame did not penetrate it, nor did it scatter the poison cloud. Only the poison cloud on the periphery was vaporized into white smoke the instant it came into contact with the black-colored light pillar. After which, it was sucked into the black light pillar. The strange calmness in the sky caused everyone present to involuntarily hold their breaths. Even Su Zhen, who was prepared to attack, did not dare to act recklessly at this moment. The energy that was agglomerated in his palm alternated between bright and dark. The viciousness in his eyes was also drowned under the pressure of the dense aura of death. Quickly withdraw. Almost at the same time, Bai Hua and the old man in Su Zhen's body suddenly cried out. The expressions of the group quickly changed, and their figures rapidly retreated without any hesitation. Between the heavens and the earth, several air-piercing sounds rang out one after another. The strange atmosphere that lingered in everyone's heart also became increasingly heavy. Within the poisonous cloud, the clouds that covered the sky and the black light pillar trembled together. The unceasingly trembling void suddenly shattered, and at the same time, bang! A low and deep explosion sound had just sounded when the blood-colored poison cloud suddenly churned. A wave of intense, chi-chi sound continued to resound. Waves of white-colored fog spread out from deep within the poison cloud. The black-colored light pillar formed a strange whirlpool that completely swallowed the fog. After which, a bang sound appeared and the poison cloud immediately churned and swelled. It appeared to be alive as it followed the black-colored energy light pillar and spread towards Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's pale face immediately revealed a grave expression when he saw this. Compared to Xia Shan, Tang Long in front of him was undoubtedly many times stronger. If he were to allow the poison cloud to spread, it was likely that he would not be able to block the attack of this old fellow even if he relied on his angry Buddha reincarnation. With this thought in mind, Xiao Yan immediately began to manically maneuver all the remaining Genesis Qi in his body. He poured all of it into the fire wheel in his hand without any hesitation. After which, his arms suddenly shook and the fire wheel in his hand trembled. A wave of turbulent energy spread from it. As the color of the wheel became increasingly deep, the devouring power lingering around the black light pillar also became increasingly ferocious. Under this terrifying suction force, the rapidly spreading blood-colored poison cloud was immediately torn into the light pillar. At the same time, under the effect of the poison cloud, the pitch-black light pillar also trembled violently at this moment. Bzz 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 bzz, as a low buzzing sound rang out, the blood-colored poison cloud churned more and more violently. The energy light on the black light pillar flickered, and at a certain moment, 100-foot-wide energy wave swept out from the blood-colored poison cloud with a loud bang. As the energy spread out, even the air was forcibly compressed into a vacuum world. The poison cloud also spread out, and the terrifying poison caused the invisible space to constantly distort until it collapsed. The little fairy doctor and the others in the distance revealed grave expressions as they watched the scene in the sky. Their hearts were worried for Xiao Yan while also feeling surprised at the frightening strength that the two of them had displayed. Su Jin rejoiced a little as he watched the scene in the sky. It was fortunate that he had not acted impulsively earlier. It was likely that he would have to face this frightening energy storm head-on at this moment. Rumble, 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 numerous spatial cracks gradually appeared on the black light pillar in the sky. The energy within it also became increasingly uncontrollable. Numerous shattered light rays shot out from within it. At the same time, the poison cloud that Tang Long was in also churned violently. Waves of hoarse low roars would occasionally be emitted from it. From the sound of it, one could confirm that it was Tang Long bang. Suddenly, an explosive sound once again resounded. The fire will in Xiao Yan's hand and the shocking poison cloud that blotted out the sun exploded at the same time. Waves of turbulent and surging energy waves continued to sweep out from within. The invisible space was destroyed time and time again. Xiao Yan and Tang Long's bodies were also sent flying by this terrifying energy storm. The two of them were like kites with their strings cut as they fell. After which, they were caught by Bai Hua and Su Jin. Su Jin received the seriously injured Tang Long in his embrace. He looked at the latter's miserable appearance and knit his brows tightly. He involuntarily cursed in his heart. He did not expect that even Tang Long was unable to finish off Xiao Yan. From the looks of it now, it was likely that he would have to personally intervene. However, when Su Jin released Tang Long and looked at Xiao Yan and the others, the similarly heavily injured Xiao Yan used the last of his strength to release the Northern King from his storage ring. At the same time, the vigilant and hostile gazes of the fairy doctor and the others landed on Su Jin. Su Jin's expression could not help but become somewhat ugly when he saw the strange lightning flickering on the surface of the Northern King. Even with his true cultivation as a six-star origin emperor, he could not help but feel a sense of pressure when facing the Northern King, let alone the fairy doctor and the others behind him. Even though he still had the old man in his body, Tang Long was not dead. He could not risk exposing his trump card too much. If that happened, his trip today would have been for nothing. The muscles on Su Jin's face involuntarily twitched when he thought of this. Only when Tang Long behind him coughed intensely did he turn around. His face was once again respectful as he walked to Tang Long's side and helped him up. His gaze cautiously eyed Xiao Yan's group on the opposite side. Next, both parties faced each other for a short moment before Su Jin was the first to lead Tang Long away from this place. After which, the little fairy doctor and the others also supported Xiao Yan. After some hesitation, they turned and headed north. Chapter 13:13. After the battle with Tang Long, Xiao Yan was seriously injured. The group turned around and headed north. The north was where the Tian Yun Villa was located. The group had just reached the middle region when they met the experts from the Dui sect. Although they had managed to force them back this time around, there might be other experts from the Dui sect who would chase after them. Looking at Tang Long's stance, it seemed that he valued Lien Er's woeful poison body extremely highly. If they continued to head east, it was likely that they would meet with trouble that they could not resolve. Moreover, given Xiao Yan's current condition, he really needed some time to recover. Currently, the closest and safest place was likely the Tian Yun Villa where Luo Jin was at. As long as they reached that place, it was likely that even with the foundation of the Dui sect, they would have no choice but to think carefully. While Xiao Yan's group was heading towards the Tian Yun Villa, on the other side, the seriously injured Tang Long was led by Su Jin to the sky above a mountain forest not far from the ancient Orchid City. Su Jin, who should have continued to head back, stopped when they arrived at this place. Tang Long, on the other hand, took the opportunity to take a short break on a mountain peak because he had consumed a medicinal pill. Cough little fellow, this time around, it is all thanks to you. If you were not around, I'm afraid that I would have already. The pale-faced Tang Long's body trembled as he sat cross-legged on the mountain peak. It was as though he would easily fall if the wind blew. Su Jin stood beside him with his hands behind his back. His eyes looked in the direction that Xiao Yan's group had left in. At the same time that a murderous intent surged in his eyes, a fierce glint also flashed across his eyes. After which, his eyes slowly landed on Tang Long beside him. Third Elder's words are too serious. This matter was originally caused by me. If I did not inform you, such a situation would not have occurred. I hope that Elder will forgive me. Ugh, if we really want to talk about it, it is all my fault for being careless. Who could have imagined that that brat was merely an initial stage origin emperor, yet he was actually able to unleash such a frightening Do skill. I will likely be laughed at when I return this time around. Additionally, I was unable to bring back the Holy Maiden. It will only be more troublesome when the sect leader learns about it. Tang Long furrowed his brows. His pale face was filled with worry. He knew the sect master's character. He had obtained news of the Holy Maiden but had not reported it. Now, he had failed to bring her back and was even covered in injuries. Not only would he not receive any sympathy, he would even receive an even greater punishment. Elder, actually, this junior has a method. Not only can it allow you to avoid punishment, but it can also make the sect leader feel sorry for you. However, at this moment, Suzhen chuckled. She slowly bent down and gently placed her right hand on Tang Long's back with a smile. Hearing this, Tang Long raised his brows, and a hint of joy appeared on his old face. If he could get the sect master to be exempted from any punishment, he didn't care about anything else. He hurriedly asked, "Tell me, what method?" That is, Suzhen slowly opened her mouth. At the same time, the smile on her face grew warmer and warmer. At the same time, the hand on Tang Long's back slowly lowered as she continued. "You will die, Puchi." The moment Suzhen's voice faded, Genesis Chi condensed in her right palm and instantly pierced through Tang Long's chest. Tang Long trembled all over as he stared at Suzhen in disbelief. Then, he slowly lowered his head and looked at the blood-red palm that had pierced through his chest. He couldn't believe that Suzhen would attack him. Why? I am the third elder of the Dewey sect. What good will it do you to kill me? It is precisely because you are the third elder of the Dewey sect that the other higher-ups will be alarmed if you die. At that time, I won't have to look for them. Those old bastards will take the initiative to find us. From where we are now, if we chase after them, we may be able to catch up to Xiao Yan and the others. As for you, you will become my nourishment. The warm smile on Suzhen's face disappeared in an instant, replaced by a sinister and cruel expression. Suzhen clenched his right hand with a sinister grin, and a strange suction force was suddenly released from his palm. At the same time, the remaining Genesis Chi in Tang Long's body began to circulate uncontrollably. Wisps of Genesis Chi gathered in Suzhen's palm and were absorbed into his body. You wretched disciple, even if I die today, I will destroy you. Sensing the strange changes in his body, Tang Long's heart was filled with fear. Only now did he realize that his sect master's worry for Suzhen was not fake. But it was already too late. Tang Long's body trembled violently as he roared with unwillingness. The remaining Genesis Chi in the vortex in his body also violently surged. Two powerless hands desperately clutched Suzhen's hand, and the expression on his old face gradually turned sinister. It seemed that the old man was planning to self-destruct and perish together with Suzhen. Hey, self-destruct? Teacher, please. Not only was Suzhen not the slightest bit worried when he saw this, he even laughed coldly in disdain. If Tang Long was still in his peak condition, perhaps he would be worried. However, the current Tang Long was merely an arrow at the end of its flight. Coupled with the existence of his teacher, there was naturally no problem. As his voice sounded, a somewhat illusory figure appeared in the void beside the two. When Tang Long saw the figure in front of him, the expression on his deathly pale face abruptly turned to one of horror, and a roar of disbelief rang out from his mouth again. You do. It's you. Hee, third brother, we finally meet again. I almost died in your hands back then. How about it? Now, it's my turn to take back everything that I've lost. As the cold laughter sounded, Yudu suddenly slammed his palm on Tang Long's head. One could only hear a muffled cracking sound, and Tang Long's mouth was wide open. His face was filled with grievances as he died. After a short while, Tang Long's body was wrapped in a strange poisonous fog and was gradually swallowed by Su Zhen. At the same time, the latter's face also strangely turned purplish-black. His eyeballs rolled continuously, and his body trembled as he hurriedly sat down. He forcefully suppressed the extremely dark and cold energy in his body and gradually refined it. Almost at the same time, on a mountain south of ancient Orchid City, 3 figures were gathering from different directions. At this moment, the 3 of them were frowning as they looked at the shattered soul jade tablet in their hands. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Third brother is dead? Who did it? Who actually dares to kill an elder of my Dui sect? Are you courting death? If they were afraid of death, they wouldn't have killed him. To be able to kill Tang Long, their cultivation is at least at the level of a 4-star source ancestor. Recently, no experts at the level of a 4-star source ancestor have appeared in this area, unless they are from the Heavenly Cloud Villa. That group of fellows usually mind their own business and rarely interact with us. Even if the conflict is not small, they should not have attacked us. Could it be someone else? Regardless of whether there is or not, let's go and take a look first. Everything will naturally be known when we reach the place. Chapter 13-14. At the peak of the cliff, Su Zhen's eyes, which had been tightly shut for a long time, finally opened as the aura within his body gradually calmed down. An obscure black light flashed across the depths of his eyes as a sliver of viciousness disappeared in the blink of an eye. The corners of Su Zhen's mouth involuntarily curled up as he sensed the powerful energy within his body. His body trembled slightly as he appeared high up in the sky. His right hand slowly clenched into a fist as he forcefully shook it. Immediately, the bones all over his body emitted cracking sounds. Huff! After doing this, Su Zhen exhaled a long breath of turbid air that had been suppressed in his chest as he involuntarily laughed. 9-star Origin Emperor. Just 1 more star and my cultivation will be able to step into the Origin sect. At that time, the only person left in the Due East sect who can threaten me will be him. There's no need to rush. It's still early. I believe that the people over there have already sensed Tang Long's death and will arrive here soon. At that time, we will kill Xiao Yan and snatch his heavenly flame. As for the 2 woeful poison bodies, they will naturally not be important. The space beside Su Zhen slowly distorted as Yudu's illusory figure appeared. When he saw his disciple in such a state, not only was there not the slightest bit of worry in his heart, he even felt a little crazy. In order to obtain sufficient power, one had to pay an extremely great price. This price could be anything, be it time, energy, wealth, or even one's life. For some lunatics, as long as they could obtain sufficient power, they did not care about how much life they had left. Su Zhen was precisely this type of person. Such a person was destined to be crazy. Teacher, do you think that little girl is really the so-called holy maiden? Other than killing intent, Su Zhen was also curious about Lian Er when Xiao Yan's group was mentioned. Immediately, his face was filled with interest as he looked at Yudu. He did not really believe that a holy maiden, who had disappeared for so many years, would actually once again return to their sights. This was a little unrealistic. None of this is important. Regardless of whether she is the holy lady or not, as long as that girl has the woeful poison body, it is enough for the upper echelons of the Duerr sect to take action. Once we obtain that woeful poison body, no one should be able to stop your marriage with that girl from the Duerr sect. In the future, the Duerr sect will belong to us. Yudu sneered in disdain. He did not care about his past identity. What was important now was to obtain the woeful poison body, and not to worry about the authenticity of Lian Er's identity. Oh. Now that they're here, it's up to you. All of a sudden, Yudu frowned. Soon after, he hurriedly turned around and returned to Su Zhen's body. The latter gave a heavy nod and hurriedly lowered his body. He deliberately slapped his chest, causing the Genesis chi in his body to dissipate as his face paled. If those fellows knew that Tang Long was dead while his disciple was completely unharmed, he would not be able to avoid suspicion. Moments later, three figures arrived and saw a pale-faced Su Jin seated on a mountain peak, recovering from his injuries. Only when he sensed the trio's arrival did Su Jin cautiously open his eyes. After confirming their identities, respect and regret surfaced on his pale face as he hurriedly stood up and bowed to the trio. Disciple greets the three elders. Speak, what happened to Tang Long? Ignoring Su Jin's respectful attitude, the leader of the trio fixed his somewhat gloomy gaze on Su Jin as he asked in a low voice. Third elder, in order to save disciple, get to the point, I'm not in the mood to listen to your complaints. Before Su Jin's voice faded, the former bellowed again. Only then did Su Jin's expression abruptly change. He bowed and continued. Third elder and this junior accidentally discovered our sect's saintess who had disappeared for many years. What did you say? Saintess? You found the saintess? Where is she? Before Su Jin finished speaking, the expressions of the three old men in front of him changed at the same time. There was even a hint of shock in their eyes. If this news were to spread to the sect, it was likely that even the sect leader would be alarmed. Yes, but when we went to chase after her, we were stopped by a boy called Xiao Yan. In the end, the third elder was killed by Xiao Yan. This junior tried my best to escape and luckily managed to keep my life, but the third elder, towards the end, tears involuntarily gushed out from Su Jin's eyes, causing the three elders to laugh coldly in their hearts. Speaking of which, the news of the saintess was already shocking enough. What is the strength of this Xiao Yan you speak of, and which faction does he belong to? Could it be the Central Region's Xiao clan? The expressions on the trio's faces could not help but be stunned when they heard Xiao Yan's name. In their impression, there was no origin sect expert called Xiao Yan in the Central Region. Even if there was one, it was likely to be a member of the Xiao clan. However, if that was the case, it would be troublesome. The Xiao clan was one of the top factions in the Central Region. Even though their Crossing Adversity sect had an extraordinary status, it was undoubtedly much inferior to the Xiao clan. Elders, please be at ease. This Xiao Yan is not from the Central Region, but from the borders of the continent. Su Jin nodded slightly and explained. Oh. From the borders of the continent? If that's the case, then there's no harm. Tell us, what star origin sect is he from? It's not easy to kill Tang Long. The elder in the lead gently nodded when he heard this, and his mood became much more relaxed. Since he was not from the Central Region, his life and death naturally did not matter. However, when Su Jin heard the old man's words, the expression on his face unconsciously changed. His expression was a little strange for a moment. It was not until a long while later that he slowly said with some hesitation under the impatient gaze of the three people in front of him. Three elders, that Xiao Yan, is not an expert from the Source Sect, HSS. The trio's brows immediately raised when they heard these words, and they could not help but feel somewhat surprised. Someone who could kill Tang Long and was not a Origin Sect expert, could it be a Origin Venerate level expert? Origin Venerate? Would an expert of that level give up his status to kill a Origin Sect expert? Humph, Su Jin, it's better for you to speak. Who exactly is he? While the few of them were doubtful, the old man in the lead turned his gaze back to Su Jin. He raised his chin and sneered. Su Jin could not help but open his mouth in fear when he saw the trio's gazes shoot over. Reporting to the three elders, that Xiao Yan is merely an early origin emperor.